Warning, the following podcast contains adult language, themes, and situations. Also, the film we're about to talk about is going to be spoiled thoroughly. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy this show.
A Nicolas Cage movie made in the last 3 years with a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Does this fantasy horror thriller bloodbath live up to the hype? Spoilers, it absolutely goddamn does, and more. So sit back as we break down the 2018 Panos Cosmatos modern classic, Mandy.
Okay, let's run.
I'm like a prickly pear.
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole! Porker, how'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and being until you pissed blood?
Welcome to One Cage at a Time, the show where we break down every single Nicolas Cage movie, one film at a time. Here are your hosts, Patrick, Vince, and Nigel.
The year is 1983, in the Shadow Mountains, where Red Miller and Mandy Bloom live a peaceful and loving existence that is shattered when a sadistic cult leader takes an unhealthy interest in Mandy that eventually leads Red down a phantasmagoric journey of vengeance.
Let's see who's joining Nick on this adventure.
Mandy features incredible performances by Andrea Risenborough as Mandy and Linus Roache as Jeremiah Sand, as well as an unexpected reappearance by Bill Duke of Predator fame, and of course, Academy Award winner and the undisputed baddest mother effer in the Shadow Mountains, Nicolas Kim Coppola, better known as Nicolas Cage.
Woo!
It's time to go over some of the finer details.
This wonderful movie was released on September 14th, 2018, with a budget of $6 million, made back 1.4. So, once again, didn't even come close to hitting its budget. But I think, it was a very limited release, very artsy movie, starring Nicolas Cage. There's a connection now of like, oh, well, Nicolas Cage isn't going to make a movie that's worth me going to a little art house indie theater to check out. Yeah. I'll watch it when it goes to direct release, to Netflix or something. But this movie, I really wish I would have had the chance to see it in the theater.
Me too.
God damn. I think it would be amazing, especially with the soundtrack and the metal music and stuff. Would have been sweet. This was directed by Panos Cosmatos, which Vince said sounds like a Harry Potter spell. Panos Cosmatos. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm not entirely sure.
It is, yeah. That's how you say his name, yep.
Who has only done one other film, which is The Serpent and the Black Rainbow, or
Behind the Black Rainbow?
Yeah, I think it's Behind the Black Rainbow.
Behind the Black Rainbow, which I haven't seen, but I really want to watch now. This was his first movie.
Apparently very similar.
Is it? Sweet.
To this. It's apparently very similar to Mandy, or stylistically.
It was 8 years in between that movie and this movie. So
he said it took him about 8 to 10 years to write this film, and he describes the difference between the two is like that first movie is like very claustrophobic, you're like very tense, so it's like you're always inhaling, and then he said that this was like an exhale. Like he was just exhaling all that anxiety and all that tension out, and I think that's pretty accurate as this movie progresses. You definitely see. It's like a force that just keeps moving. Yeah.
Written by Panos Cosmatos, and then Aaron Stewart-Ahn also credited as a writer, which I have a few quick facts about Aaron Stewart-Ahn's interpretation of the film. But runtime's 121, so it's a little on the long side, especially it's like an hour and 15 minutes building to this incredible final act. But I really feel like those first two acts make the last act what it is. It makes it so satisfying after the first two.
It did not feel like a 2-hour movie.
No. No, I don't feel like a drug.
It flowed so well. No, it moves so well.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that 2 hours had passed when I finished watching it.
Music, of course, by the late great Johan Johansson. I think that's how it's pronounced, but who also did, of course, The Arrival and Sicario, bunch of things. Life cut way short. And he was like on the precipice of being like the next Hans Zimmer. I mean, dude would be, if it wasn't for an unfortunate cocktail of drugs and flu medicine, he'd still be with us.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we don't get to bask in that brilliance, which, by the way, like the Sicario soundtrack I listen to all the time. I love that soundtrack.
Same.
And his work in Arrival is incredible.
Yeah. God, that music was so good. It's a real shame.
Yeah. Over on the rating side of things, this has a 90%, which is crazy. A Nicolas Cage movie with a 90%.
A low-budget Nicolas Cage movie.
A low-budget horror movie. I mean, technically, it's all over the spectrum as far as genre, but I mean, I would say the overarching thing is it's definitely a horror movie. But a Nicolas Cage horror movie that came out in the teens, the 2000 teens, that has a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's incredible. 7.60 out of 10, 246 reviews. Metacritic score is 81%, so it's a little bit lower. And then the audience score is 66%, which is surprising. Crazy. I guess, the critics took more time to kind of, see what this movie was all about, whereas the audience watches it and it's like, what in the fuck was that?
Yeah, I can get it.
The trick to really enjoying the movie is taking a tablet of acid before you hit play.
I found the trick to really enjoying it was just to stop worrying about the story and just watch the movie.
Yeah,
I think if you're wrapped up in what's actually happening story-wise, it's it's whatever. It's not that great of a story. It's just the presentation of it. It's the way you have to experience it rather than just break it down like we're gonna do.
Yeah,
I think it's much better just sitting back and just letting it play out in front of you and not thinking about it too much.
Yeah, it's a visual journey for sure.
Yeah.
So I can get why some people were like, what the fuck? This is slow and boring and dragging on for not a lot of payback, or movie, or not a lot of story.
Yeah, Panos Cosmatos actually said in the behind the scenes that he feels like the best films are the simplest stories. So tell a super simple story, but then flesh out the rest of it with insane visuals and incredible music and just a whole vibe to it, and that definitely shows through here.
I've heard that he doesn't care as much about the story as much as he wants to present it. So that's basically how this plays out.
How about a Coppola quick facts?
Panos Cosmatos is actually the son of George P. Cosmatos, who directed such films as Leviathan, Cobra, Rambo First Blood Part 2, and Tombstone. So,
wow.
Good bloodline.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tombstone is one of my all-time favorite films. And of course, I'll admit that I'm a big fan of the whole Rambo series. And First Blood Part 2 is such a it's like the first movie is they tried to tell a story, and the second movie they were like, let's just blow some shit up. This will be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. They first movie they told a story and satirized stuff, and then the second movie just leaned into everything they were satirizing in the first movie.
Yep.
And just abandoned the thoughtfulness.
Damn it, it's satisfying. Especially, there's kind of a parallel here of how satisfying it is when John Rambo gets on the radio in First Blood Part 2, and he's like, Murdoch, I'm coming to get you. And then he kills everybody in the whole camp and busts out of there. It's kind of similar to Mandy in a lot of ways.
It is. Yeah, it is.
That I've seen that scene probably 100 times, and it still gives me the chills. Every time I see it, Murdoch, coming to get you.
There's a synthwave album that I really like from an artist called Mega Drive.
Oh, yeah.
Samples that line at the start of one of his songs. It's so good.
Synthwave fans are going to love this movie. During an interview with GQ magazine, Nicolas Cage disclosed that when Panos Cosmatos first approached him to be in the film, he wanted him to play the role of Jeremiah Sand, the cult leader. And Cage read the script and said that he identified with Red much more than with Jeremiah Sand. And it seems like this is a trend now. It's Nick does one crazy role and then he does one straight role. And when he reads the script, he's like, well, I just played a crazy person, so maybe this time I should play a normal person. Panos told him...
Which is funny because Red is also kind of crazy.
Yeah.
In this. Driven to
He doesn't really
insanity.
start out crazy, but he goes crazy throughout his journey. Panos told him that this story was about old age versus youth, and he didn't think that Red was right to play, or that he was right to play the role of Red, and no agreements were made. A year later, through Elijah Wood, again, going back to Color Out of Space, same group made this movie that made Color Out of Space. So Elijah Wood, he was in a movie called The Trust, which I think we're going to do next season. And that's where he got to know Nick Cage really well. And now he's kind of becoming Nick Cage's biggest cheerleader. And he convinced Panos Cosmatos to give him another shot. So Elijah Wood met with the two of them to discuss the film, and this time they explored more in detail the themes of love and loss of love within the film, and they discussed those same themes within their personal lives. And by this time, everything just clicked, and Panos felt totally comfortable in Cage playing the role of Red. Yeah, I guess he just kind of abandoned that youth versus old age type of thing, because Jeremiah Sand is probably about the same age as Nick Cage in this movie.
Yeah.
In a 2018 UK Guardian interview, Nicolas Cage described his performance inspiration is just right before they started shooting, his 14-year marriage to Alice Kim Cage came to a sudden end, which he said was a shocker for me. Didn't see it coming, and those feelings had to go somewhere, so they went into this performance. So, once again, divorce plays a role. Because that was the story in The Weatherman, too, was he put his divorce into that, which had just, his previous marriage had just ended before The Weatherman. So, it all ties together, man. Speaking of tying together, Panos Cosmatos' favorite Nicolas Cage movie is, can you guess, Vampire's Kiss?
Yes. A man of good taste.
Yes. According to co-writer Aaron Stewart-Ahn, I think that's how you say it, AHN, Stewart-Ahn.
Sounds right.
When he and Panos Cosmatos presented Mandy at the Cannes Film Festival, Cosmatos described it as a film about the death of his parents, which, again, I'm not really sure if I got that from this movie. The youth versus old age didn't really pan out, and then this this story, this is after the film was done and they presented it. He said that the film was about the death of his parents. So, yeah. I'm not really sure. I didn't get that. Mom was burned to death, and Dad went on a murder rampage.
Dealing with death or loss, I guess. Maybe?
Yeah, probably probably dealing with loss through
sudden
death.
Loss.
Yeah,
unless the cult couple, the cult leaders, were supposed to be his parents.
I mean, that was George P. Cosmatos, the director. So I don't know. He wasn't a lumberjack. But anyways, yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like I can read into that and see where he's coming from. But maybe that's just how he approached the project. Like this was his therapy, for his parents dying, which I can relate. This movie is, of course, dedicated to the composer Johan Johansson, 1969 through 2018. This wasn't the last film that came out that he did, but this was one of the very last things that he did before he died. One of the last things he was working on to finish up. so sad. While the beginning of the film features the standard cast, filmmakers, and crew credits, the title card of this movie does not show up until an hour and 15 minutes into the film, which I thought was intentional. Like, it kind of like set it apart as like there's, you know, the Shadow Mountains, which is Red and Mandy's story, and then the whatever, the
Age of the New Dawn.
Age of the New Dawn.
Or Children of the New Dawn. Sorry, yeah.
Section was all about them, and then the Mandy section is all about getting revenge for Mandy. And then the final quick fact here, which I found a ton of quick facts that are all smattered throughout the breakdown, so there'll be a lot of little extra things in this one. But the final thing is that although this is set in California, which I, for some reason, thought it was in Washington, but the Shadow Mountains are actually in California, and they confirmed that that's where it's intended to be, is in California. So it's Pacific Northwest, sort of. But even though it was intended to be in California, this entire movie was shot in Belgium. We're 9, 10 movies into this thing, and so far we haven't left the United States once in context. They've filmed in different places, like Color Out of Space was filmed in Spain, and then this was filmed in Portugal. That's right. And then this was filmed in Belgium. So we have jumped out filming wise, but we haven't jumped out of the country as far as like where things are set, which is kind of crazy.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I rented Mandy instead of watching it on some piece of shit service like Crackle.
I'm telling you, dude, the reason you hated The Weatherman has nothing to do with The Weatherman. It was Crackle.
Yeah. Now, I promise you, even though I saw the same antidepressant ad 14 times during Weatherman because of Crackle kept showing it to me, that's not the reason I hated the movie.
Can't imagine why it was showing you an antidepressant ad.
Yeah,
Just
you're clearly
based
not
on
depressed.
The background of your apartment.
Well, it's because I was watching The Weatherman, so it figured I would need it because
How dare you?
Chronically depressed.
How dare you? That is a classic. That's a classic film.
Either way, the point is nobody even likes to watch ads in the first place. So why would they want to interrupt the movie every 5 minutes to show you the same freaking ad over and over again?
I mean, that's valid.
Yeah.
Ads kind of suck.
I think I'll probably end up just buying this one too because I liked it so much. I'm actually kind of sad that I rented it even.
Do they have it on Loved Again Media?
I don't know. What's Loved Again Media?
Dude, have you not watched Dog Eat Dog yet? Did you not see Patrick's ad?
Oh, our episode on Dog Eat Dog?
Yes.
No,
yes.
who the hell's going to watch a 3-hour podcast about a crappy 90-minute Nicolas Cage movie?
Because there's so much to talk about.
Dude, we spent like 20 minutes on the Pink Room, dude.
I think it was like 30 minutes on the Pink Room.
Intro, yeah. Either way, I really don't want to revisit that one again, even in podcast form.
Well, Nigel, Loved Again Media, for those who didn't watch the Dog Eat Dog episode, Loved Again Media is a website that sells lightly used DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, and stuff. It's kind of like going to a video store in the olden days, the good old days, when you could go to a video store, peruse the shelves, and pick out a movie, except these are only like $4 and $5 a piece. So if you do find Mandy on there, you can get an extra 15% off by visiting lovedagainmedia.com/onecage and entering the promo code onecage. And you can combine that with other coupon codes like the 20% off if you spend over $100.
All right, sweet. I'll check them out. I mean, I do like having large collections of physical things.
Really? Head over to lovedagainmedia.com now and get an extra 15% off by entering the coupon code ONECAGE at checkout to start building your Nicolas Cage collection today.
All right, it's time to break down the film one scene at a time. Act 1. Why don't we set some shit
Our
up?
film begins with the quote, "When I die, bury me deep, lay 2 speakers at my feet, wrap some headphones around my head, and rock and roll me when I'm dead." Which I'm pretty sure was the last quote that Gandhi ever gave. Actually, quick fact, the quote appears to be the last words of Douglas Roberts, a man convicted of kidnapping, robbery, and murder who was executed on April 20th, 2005, but isn't credited in the film. It's a good date.
Yeah.
April 20th.
Yeah,
my birthday.
Good things always happen around that time.
It's always, every year, something wonderful happens around. the anniversary of Hitler's birth. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty metal way to go out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty metal.
I'm not
opening
really
to the film.
sure exactly why he chose that as the first thing to go on screen in this movie, but it fits.
Obviously, he's a fan of metal music.
Yes.
So, this movie, while the soundtrack doesn't have a lot of metal music to it, the movie itself is like a metal album, which is the way I viewed it.
I mean, that's kind of what the first watch through, I kept thinking, this feels like a movie where somebody just pulled out a bunch of 70s metal albums and then did some acid and just looked at one cover and wrote about it, and then looked at another cover and wrote about it.
Yeah.
I mean, everything throughout the whole movie just feels like, kind of like that fantasy 70s thing that was going on. And then the metal,
great.
crazy outfits and stuff, of the bikers and shit.
Next, we hear the sounds of one of the greatest prog rock bands to ever exist, King Crimson, playing over shots of the forest. Quick fact, the film's opening song, Starless, by King Crimson, originally appeared on their 1974 album, Red, which is also the name of Nicolas Cage's character.
Yeah. Red is also an incredible album, one of my favorite King Crimson albums.
It ties in well with the way this movie has themes of cosmology and space stuff, so it works. Next, we see the man we've all been waiting for. Nick Cage is a lumberjack, and he's okay. He sleeps all night, and he works all day. I wrote the same joke. Wrote it word for word. He cuts down trees and he skips and jumps onto a helicopter with his crew. Quick fact, the number 44 on Red's shirt may have multiple meanings. A reference to Mark Twain's unfinished novel, The Mysterious Stranger, where a supernatural character called Number 44 appears and uses his supernatural powers to expose the futility of mankind's existence. New York Yankees Reggie Jackson, who is famous for hitting 3 straight home runs in 1977. And serial killer David Richard Berkowitz, who is also known as the Son of Sam and the 44 caliber killer. I like to imagine it's the first one of those, but it also kind of fits to have the last one as well.
The Reggie Jackson one kind of makes sense too, because he was really popular in 1983, so it seems like something. And then it's also we see that, I'm not sure if it was actually in the movie, but in a cutscene, when he first meets Mandy, she's wearing that shirt, and so that would have been,
it's in the movie,
years earlier. And of course, that's his favorite shirt throughout the whole movie.
Someone in the chopper offers Red a drink, and playing totally against character, Nick Cage declines, which tips us off that his character Red no longer indulges himself with alcohol. Yeah. I thought about that. This is the first movie where he turns down a drink that we've watched right out the gate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of got the sense that Mandy's the reason that he doesn't drink anymore. Because they kind of met in a bar, and then you see that scene where he's schluffing off the guy, offering him a drink after a hard day's work.
Yeah, he's a recovered alcoholic and he's not.
Yeah.
He had that same kind of no.
And when he does drink later on, it's he hadn't drinking in a while. Yeah. This is hidden in a cabinet.
It was hidden in a
Yep. So
I was going to say it was a secret stash.
Yep. Next, we see our titular character, Mandy, drawing fantasy-inspired characters in a notebook, something people did before they drew nothing but anime characters in Rule 34 fan art, meaning this movie is definitely set in the past.
That's when I knew it was set in a different time.
There wasn't just some anime girl with big eyes.
Yeah, there's no cat chicks.
But she still drew naked chicks, but they weren't anime proportions.
They just weren't anime.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's changed.
Red drives home to their cabin in the middle of the woods while listening to Ronald Reagan rail against pornography on the radio before smartly shutting that bullshit off. We see the words "The Shadow Mountains, 1983 AD" appear on the screen in the Last Unicorn font.
It looks exactly the same, right?
Fantasy 70s, 80s, happy-go-lucky Jim Henson looking font. Red and Mandy reunite with an Eric Estrada inspired knock knock joke because it's the 80s. It's just a really weird delivered knock knock, who's there? Eric Estrada. Eric Estrada who? Eric Estrada from Chips. I don't get it. Was it a reference?
I don't know. I'm
He
sure.
looks like Eric Estrada.
And Humphrey Bogart. That's so weird.
What a stretched out Humphrey.
There's right after the credits. I didn't see it the first time through, but second time through, at the very end of the credits, it shows what she was drawing, and it's a picture of Red with a big tiger behind him, which comes into play a lot in the film.
The starlings chirping.
Yeah.
If you notice that. They head to bed in a room designed like a bear and cougar deli counter, completely surrounded by windows on all sides, just hanging out like in the forest. I was like, are they sleeping outside? What is this? Like, this seems like a weird thing to do in the middle of the mountains, but they have like it's almost like a greenhouse window that like juts out. That's just, they have no walls and they're out sleeping outdoors, but it's still inside.
Yeah. I'm sure that there's some like symbolism there, but it would be cool in like a rainstorm to sit in there.
Yeah, I know those windows exist, so that's cool. They lovingly chat about their favorite planets, while the colors of the room fade between different shades, like the beginning of an acid trip, which is exactly what I think they meant for this scene, and the whole movie. Quick fact, Red jokes that his favorite planet is Galactus, the villainous planet eater from Marvel Comics. We've mentioned this in the past already, but it's worth repeating that Nicolas Cage is a noted comic fan. When he changed his name to his stage name, he took it from the Marvel Comics hero Luke Cage, and he's played at least 4 separate comic book heroes across 5 films. Ghost Rider and the sequel Spirit of Vengeance, Kick-Ass, Into the Spider-Verse, and Teen Titans Go to the Movies. He was also slated to play Superman in an ultimately canceled Tim Burton movie, and his son Kal-El is named after Superman.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's other references to things, but those are the ones that we could think
So
of.
far hasn't made it into the DC universe, which is kind of a shame, because he's obviously a big DC fan too.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's Teen Titans Go to the Movies. He was Superman.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he finally got to play Superman like 20 years after he was supposed to play him in a movie that got canceled.
I can't wait to do the deep dive on that.
Mandy also says her favorite planet is Jupiter because there's a 1,000-year storm that's been raging across it, which it's probably related to something in the movie.
Yeah.
But I'll get into it a little bit later. The planets are kind of important to what's going on in the overall scheme of things. We see a shot of the sky, which is like a scene straight out of Color of Space for some reason. It's just like it looked like a matte painting from an 80s like fantasy where they like superimposed stormy clouds over a normal sky, and it was really cool looking.
Yeah. They kind of did the same thing with the scene where they're in the boat later on, which was almost like took me out of the scene because it looks so weird. But I think that's what they were going for. It was like, there's a lot of things in this movie that just seem like they're weird for the sake of being weird.
Again, I've never done acid, but I think it's one of those things when you're hallucinating it. Things like they're hyper realistic looking, but look off. Like, it's obviously clouds, but they don't fit with the rest of the clouds in it. They look super realistic and weird.
Yeah.
But I can see that being part of it. This whole movie is designed to make you feel like you're hallucinating, which is cool. It's just cool, man.
It's cool. All right.
At least I think it's designed to make it feel like you're hallucinating. It feels like you're on a drug trip the whole time.
Yeah. Start to finish.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Not so much, at the start it kind of eases you into it as things like this happen and stuff kind of puts you off and makes you feel weird, but before things really go off the rails. Next, we see the two of them sitting and enjoying a nice day fishing on the lake, then sharing an eerily prolonged but still loving stare at each other while each of them is on different sides of a large campfire, which is foreshadowing. It's worth mentioning that Mandy has a scar on one side of her face, and her eyes seem to be different sizes, which can lead us to believe that she's experienced some major trauma in the past. I thought she had heterochromia, but I think it is just she's got one blue eye, which is her natural eye color, and then one dark eye, but it's because her pupil is permanently dilated, like David Bowie had.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know, is she related to Le Chef from Casino Royale?
Le Chiffre.
Shifra. I couldn't get that out of my head every time I saw her.
I didn't do much of a deep dive on her or the guy who played Jeremiah Sand. I kind of wish I would have, just to see what other kind of roles they've done.
I looked up to see that I thought that scar was actually like she had that scar in real life, but she doesn't.
She doesn't.
It's kind of crazy how like gaunt and kind of strange they made her look in this film, because she's gorgeous, like in everything else I've ever seen. Like, she's all done up and beautiful. So
yeah,
nicely done on the makeup
I
side.
think it was that trying to give you that striking look of her. She doesn't look like anybody else.
Yeah.
You're drawn to looking at her, and there's all these long shots of her to emphasize that, I think. They wake up in each other's arms the next morning by the fire. Mandy hears a sound in the woods that sounds like Bigfoot and decides to investigate, where she finds a dead fawn which looks to be mutilated. I'm sure there's some symbolism here, but I'm not smart enough to get it. Based on a quick Google search in one of those hippie dream sites, a deer represents inner peace, tranquility, gentleness, intuition, graceful action, and self-awareness. They have a strong spiritual connection as they are aware of subtle energies happening all around them, which does seem to align with Mandy's character perfectly. The fawn being mauled to death by some unseen creature in the night can't be good news, and is also more foreshadowing. She sheds a single tear like the Indian chief from the old littering commercials. She looks at this dead fawn.
I think it was like, there's several things in here that show like how gentle of a spirit she is, and how like, she just like, I feel like they live in the woods just because she doesn't want to be around people, and she only really lets Red, get to know her, and he's like the only person she really trusts. Because like, especially how she looks at the gray-haired lady in the gas station later on, like just immediately like, what the hell? Why are you even talking to me? Just leave me alone. Let me read my book, even though I'm supposed to be doing a service.
Right, working on my job. Back home, Red has a bad dream and says he wonders if they should move away. Mandy says she likes it here and it's their home. Again, it's in nature, out in the woods, tied in with the universe, whatever. One with the cosmos. Then she tells a horrifying childhood story about her dad forcing her and her neighborhood friends to bash baby birds to death with a crowbar because the starlings were eating cherries off their cherry tree. And her dad hates the starlings. Parenting 101 right there.
That's a fun thing to drop on a little kid.
Of Silence of the Lambs. Like the lamb story, Silence of the Lambs.
True.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
She says that she ran away when it was her turn to bash the baby birds to death, letting us know, again, what a gentle soul she is. Not sure I'd want to hear that story first thing after a nightmare, but it lets us know a bit more as to why she's living in the middle of the woods with no people around besides Red when he's not out logging. I'm not entirely sure what the significance of this parable was, but I wonder if the connection to starlings ties into Mandy herself, because she seems like a starling trapped in the cosmos with obsession with the planets and universal harmony.
Yeah.
Like not starling the bird, but a being from the stars, a starling. Things start to get ominous the next morning as Mandy reads an excerpt from a fantasy novel that seems to describe perfectly the stronghold of the cult we'll be meeting shortly. Then I wrote it down because I liked it. Under the crimson and primordial sky, surrounded by the jagged rocks of the ancient volcanic mountain, the wretched warlock reaches into the dark embrace of the fissure until his hand touched a smooth, glassy surface. Cold as ice, his fingers closed around the serpent's eye. Slowly he withdrew it and held it before him in the fading light of the blood-red suns. It glowed from within, a ghostly emerald light, strange and eternal. Quick fact, when Mandy is reading her book, she has a Series 2009 $1 bill as a bookmark, and the story takes place in the early 1980s.
Okay. I wasn't going to say anything, but I noticed that it really threw me off. It really threw me, and I couldn't, I was like, why am I so fixated on this? Yes, that's a blatant mistake, but really it doesn't matter. And I was just so stuck on it.
Yeah, it immediately caught my eye because I was like, it just doesn't look right for
It's
1983.
It's just weird. Like, why go to the trouble of using a dollar bill as a bookmark to show for it? Unless it's, I think it was the side that had the eye on the pyramid, the weird symbology there probably.
I was trying to figure out if there was some sort of symbolism there, but I don't know. I don't see it. I guess the eye makes the most sense, but...
or maybe they don't care about material things because they live out in the woods and use money for bookmarks and trivial stuff.
That makes sense. I like that.
I'm sure there's a reason, but it's just, well, that's...
Or they had a cool bookmark and they lost it before the shoot and they were like, just
and they
here's
literally
$1.
couldn't find anything else on the set. No other paper anywhere. Another quick fact, the book that Mandy's reading during the film, The Seeker of Serpent's Kiss, is a prop, fake book. It's actually the name of the musical composition playing during that scene, and it's by the film's composer, Johan Johansson.
It's a cool little.
Yeah, I wrote down the author trying to look it up because she mentions the author's name at some point, and I was like, oh, it's not a real author. I thought it was going to be a real book that had some significance.
I thought the book when she's in the gas station was a real one, but
I looked. It was like Lenore. What did she say her name was?
something
Lenore
Tor. Yeah,
which I looked up, and it seemed to only link back to this movie, so I don't think it's a real. Unless it's a second book. I didn't realize it was two different books.
It could be the same book. I didn't really pay attention that closely.
She heads down the road with her book in a foggy, dreamlike world that's completely red. A van passes by filled with some weirdos. The Manson gang meets the Valley of the Dolls, if you're into references from the 60s. The leader of this motley bunch locks eyes with Mandy as they pass her and seems instantly infatuated. Really weird, long shot of staring back and forth between the two of them.
Yeah, I love it too.
Mm-hmm. It was like the first time that the music really just went dark as hell. So as soon as that like red scene starts and all the way through it. So,
I also love that shot of her face just elongating with as the camera pulls away.
Yeah,
Fixed in like that to me was just him, like her image fixed in his memory.
and then superimposed and just blurring over everything else.
Yeah, and then as you see, we learn how obsessed he has become with her in that 10 seconds.
Yeah.
That he saw her.
Next, we see the title card that reads Children of the New Dawn as we head inside their wacky, wonderful world. The cult leader is named Jeremiah, as every cult leader should be named. I just thought that, like, either Jeremiah or Jebediah or some weird old biblical name. It's just some Children of the Corn shit.
Yeah.
Jeremiah seems real sleepy, and he isn't too pleased when his gray-haired nutjob servant asks him if he's doing okay. He tells her everything she does is wrong. And judging by her face, I'm guessing he's right. He says he feels naked without the random stranger he spotted in the road. He then berates old gray Betty with the punchable face, saying she doesn't seem to hear him, and that if she doesn't follow him, she will not ascend to heaven or Haley Bop or whatever this jackass believes. He then holds the word please for a ludicrously long time and tells her to be quiet and go fetch Brother Swan. When she says okay, Jeremiah busts into his best Gollum impression and says, "Go get me Brother Swan, precious." Should I do it? Should I do it in a Gollum voice?
You should do it.
Do it in a Gollum voice. Go get me Brother Swan, precious.
Amazing.
He wants it. Brother Swan is a bald doofus. Brother Swan, I read all this before, but it still gets me. The word doofus is so good.
I know.
Brother Swan is a bald doofus who Jeremiah instructs to go get the girl he saw on the road, and then he asks him if he has the horn of Abraxas, which I think is a flute that's been passed down from generation to generation to call leprechauns, if I'm not mistaken. It's an obscure reference to a viral video from 15 years ago, if anybody recognizes that.
I want to go.
It's great.
Give me to go.
I wanted to call that dude. I wanted to call him Red Foreman because he looks like the Hills Have Eyes version of Red Foreman. But then when I found out that Nick's character's name was Red, I was like, I can't do that because I feel like it'd just be too confusing. But,
I thought
I kept thinking of
he kind of looks like the guy who plays Homer Simpson.
Oh, yeah.
The Dan Castellaneta or whatever his name is.
He does.
That's what I kept thinking about the movie. I'm like, this is like the fucked up version of Homer Simpson's voice actor. Everybody in that cult was sort of like the fucked up version of some other person that I read.
Yeah, you got Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, the guy who looks like Sting that cuts his own hair. The slack-jawed yokel version of Sting. The cult leader looks like a combination of Danny Carey and Maynard James Keenan from Tool.
He does.
The Horn of Abraxas may or may not be just some random piece of lava rock in the shape of the Ocarina of Time that they found, but for some reason the world turns into a flashing green strobe light when it appears.
Oh God.
What exactly was going on there?
I think it was to show, because it also happens again later when the knife shows up. I think it's to be like it's a demonic
Enchanted
entity thing or whatever. It's possessed. It's not right. It's not of this world. All right, so please bear with me here because I did a lot of research. Well, not a lot, but I did some research on this, and everything my research just seemed insane. So if I'm getting any of this stuff wrong, if anybody actually follows this stuff, don't get mad at me. But not so quick fact. Abraxas or abrasax is a mystical word of uncertain origin similar to abracadabra. It's tied to Gnostic or Kabbalistic beliefs, and somehow the 7 letters in the name refer to the 7 classical planets in the solar system that were visible to the naked eye to the ancient Greeks. The Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The name also geometrically references the number 365 for the days of the year. In Gnostic beliefs, Abraxas is the great archon. Archons are builders of the physical universe and rulers related to the 7 planets. The horn of Abraxas may be a version of the real-world Abraxas stones, which were gemstones with the name engraved on them that were used by followers as charms or as amulets. Wow. So a lot of this, and I included this because it's important to sort of understand what the hell this cult is believing, because that was something that threw me off as I was watching it, because I didn't understand what the hell they were talking about, and I thought it was just weird cult mumbo jumbo, but it seems like it's actually tied to real stuff.
Yeah. And it seems like it's tied into the story, with Mandy and the planets and all that kind of stuff too. So
yeah, that's why I said when she said her favorite planet's Saturn, and I think one of them mentions Jupiter and stuff. It's one of the 7 classical planets.
I think Red said Saturn and she said Jupiter because of the storm. And then he changes it to Galactus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I think is part of why Jeremiah's drawn to her. Like, she seems to fixate on planets and stuff, and it's related to this belief system that they have, that he sensed it or something. Another not quick fact ripped straight from Wikipedia because I'm tired of trying to summarize his madness. Gnosticism is a collection of religious ideas and systems which originated in the late 1st century CE among Jewish and early Christian sects. These various groups emphasized personal spiritual knowledge over orthodox teachings, traditions, and the authority of the church. Viewing material existence as flawed or evil, Gnostic cosmogony generally presents a distinction between a supreme, hidden god and a malevolent lesser divinity who is the one responsible for creating the material universe. In the context of this movie, Abraxas is probably the lesser divinity that the children of the New Dawn are obsessed with, is the evil entity that they seem to worship or is responsible for creating existence and stuff. I'm sure there's more if you go back and watch Jeremiah's rambling of stuff to Red that might probably ties into that, but who knows?
Yeah, that's great stuff, though.
Yeah. It sets a little context up for what happens.
Yeah. Deep dive, man. We go deep on this show.
Like, reading those articles and clicking different links to different stuff, like, just honestly felt like I was a Lovecraft character, like, researching this shit. Because none of it started. The more you read about it, the less it makes sense, and then it branches off into other things, and it's like all this weird, forbidden knowledge that you probably shouldn't be reading about. Is what it felt like. So, it's kind of a fun exercise, but it made me feel like I was starting to go nuts. I was like, why is this stuff starting to make sense? What is going on? It's like,
maybe that's how this all started, with them, as they were like hopping on what was the equivalent back then was like Encyclopedia Britannica, and they just started researching this stuff, and then
that sounds
shit, this makes sense.
Oh my god, this is making insanely good sense.
I'm gonna write a song about myself.
We'll get to it. It's because they played D&D a lot. It led them down this hole. Then Jeremiah tells Brother Swan to offer up the porker, too. And it pans to the kid from Bad Santa, all grown up watching TV in the other room, hanging out with some guy who cuts his own hair and looks like Sting. If Sting did meth and this slack-jawed yokel.
Did you notice that the freak was like playing with his hair the whole time? He was like playing with Thurman Merman's hair.
Also, like a younger version of Mugatu from Zoolander. He's just a weird little pudgy kid with white blonde hair.
Obviously shouldn't be there, or like got grabbed by them, and just doesn't fit in at all.
No, he does not. Poor kid.
Before Brother Swan takes off, Jeremiah tells him to send in Sister Lucy, because you're never too tired for a little taste of a brainwashed zealot girl. She goes in and closes the door, and you're left to the imagination what they're doing. Cult leader stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
And spreading his seed.
I mean, his other lady was, old and used up and gray-haired. I get the sense she was his original, fuck toy for 20 years or whatever, and now he's casting her off for other people, and that's what pisses her off so much.
She's the most sensual, sensitive lover he's ever had, according to 3 hours from now. When we get to that
part. We cut to Mandy at her job as a clerk behind the counter at a rural gas station. The gray-haired cult lady approaches her and remarks on how cool Mandy's Black Sabbath shirt is, which, of course, it is, so you can't fault her there. By the way, there's another cool piece of foreshadowing in the background of this shot where we see 2 extra long bladed chainsaws on either side of Mandy. It's a cool, nice little nugget.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mandy gives her a get fucked look before saying thanks for complimenting her shirt. Then they chit-chat a second about the fantasy novel Mandy is reading before Mandy tells the creep that she lives near Crystal Lake. Quick fact, it was confirmed that this is a direct reference to Friday the 13th Camp Crystal Lake. Subtle.
Yeah. It was pretty...
Wait, is that a real place? Like, that seems like a weird out-of-place, on-the-nose reference.
Crystal Lake in the Shadow Mountains. I tried to look it up, and then I saw that little nugget.
Yeah.
It is.
It's like saying you live on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Spooky lady overstays her welcome since Mandy clearly wants to go back to her book instead of helping out the only customer she'll probably see all day, before saying, "See you later," ominously. Stupid customers.
Retail, man.
Everybody's work retail hates dealing with them.
Yeah.
That night, we see Brother Swan, the guy who cuts his own hair, and the rest of the faithful hanging out near Mandy and Red's cabin in their rape van. Yeah, like the mystery machine. Gotta go solve a mystery. Brother Swan blows on the horn of Abraxas, which sounds nothing like you'd expect a lava rock blown into by a fugly bald guy to sound. It's like this weird note that lingers and keeps going after he stops blowing on it. I don't know if you noticed that, but it was cool.
Echoing through the woods. Calling.
It felt like it was still just going. Like it sounded. It didn't sound like an echo. It was like he stopped blowing, but it still continued to go. Yeah. The guy with great hair who never closes his mouth and looks like he's waiting anxiously for someone to smell the fart he just let out rolls down up and down the window over and over while they wait for the horn to do its work. As it turns out, the horn of Abraxas oddly works to summon a few extras from a Road Warrior movie. 3 leather-bound freaks on motorcycles appear from the woods while making demon noises. Brother Swan gives one of them some blood or applesauce or something in a mason jar, but the biker/demon/Cenobite/Fallout Raider says blood for blood and he wants more. Next, we see Mandy and Red enjoying dinner at home while watching a sci-fi movie. Red goes outside, lights a cigarette, stares off into the woods suspiciously, and then flicks it after 2 puffs. That's why we have so many goddamn forest fires these days. That kind of behavior right there.
Well, spoilers. Smokey the Bear does come around and make him pay. You want to start a fire? I'll start a fire, goddammit. Bring her out.
They head to bed, but they're woken up in the middle of the night by the crazy biker Cenobites and the cultists who pull them shaking and terrified out of their beds, where Mandy watches as they knock out Red and then sees Thurman Merman get taken away to his presumed death by the bikers.
Act 2. It's about time we had some conflict, wouldn't you say?
Mandy wakes up at the kitchen table with Sister Lucy and Marlene with the gray hair telling her that the creepy bikers are gone. Red is fine and that he'll stay that way as long as she cooperates. Marlene explains that Mandy has a huge responsibility on her since Jeremiah thinks she's special, and they drip LSD into her eye and sting her in the neck with a murder hornet or something that looked super fake. It was really really like robotic looking. And I was like, I don't know if this is supposed to look like that, or if it's supposed to actually be a bee or a hornet or something. But
I think it was supposed to be weird, and it succeeded.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing it was supposed to be like, oh, this is something from the Amazon, this crazy insect that we've brought over and put into a mason jar. Yeah.
I was like, is this supposed to be a real thing? Is this supposed to be an homage to Wrath of Khan or something? Stick the little earwigs in there.
Yeah.
Sister Lucy, who probably still has some of Jeremiah's juice dripping down her leg, explains that it's all a beautiful dream, and Mandy starts tripping balls. Everything gets coated in a purple haze, and she's introduced to the Messiah himself. Jeremiah explains that when he saw her on the road, she called out to him silently. He asks her what she sees when she looks at him, and she says she sees the Reaper fast approaching, which baffles Jeremiah, since I'm guessing he was probably expected Jesus or something along those lines.
Fuck do you think he
It's got that like robe on and stuff. I think he's
Yeah.
oh my God, it's God.
She just like, it's just one fuck you after another with her to him too, which I loved.
Yeah.
He just can't break her. She is who she is.
Yep.
Jeremiah plays her some kickin' jams that he compares to the Carpenters, but better, which turns out to be some Renaissance fair sounding 70s soft rock, and just so happens to be Jeremiah's band. There's a quick fact. The song Jeremiah Sam plays in the scene where he tries to seduce Mandy is called Amulet of the Weeping Maze, and was actually released in real life on the music site Bandcamp. It became a bestseller on the site shortly after the film came out, and on the single is a 17-minute track in the style of an interview called My Journey, which details Sam's life and his views on the world and God. Like, a lot went into this movie, a lot more. Yeah. I really do appreciate the world that they built out and that they really fleshed out. And that's super unique for an indie film to go to that length. And that's crazy that it became a bestseller, too.
Well, it's,
Well, a bestseller on Bandcamp.
it's better than the Carpenters. I mean, great.
I was listening to it and I was really hoping he was going to tuck his junk and start dancing.
I was watching that. I was like, were the Carpenters really that big? I don't know. Like,
Yeah, they were
it seemed
huge.
like a weird thing to reference. So it wasn't. Okay. That's
Yeah,
good.
especially to cult freaks like them.
The early 80s and stuff. Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
especially drugged out weirdos like this would love the Carpenters. It just mellows you out, man. Just mellows you.
It just mellows, man. Like, just listen to the lyrics,
Just
man.
takes that edge off.
The lyrics are all about him and how Jeremiah Sand is a righteous man. And he explains that the record label somehow didn't like his music, even though it's sent straight from heaven. So in a nutshell, he decided to become a messiah because his music sucks. You know, that old chestnut.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it just, you know what happened to Manson?
exactly the same, yeah.
Exactly. I wonder if they knew each other.
He was just infatuated with himself, you know? So it was like, of course, everybody needs to be infatuated with me, but these idiots at the record label don't like what I'm putting out there, even though I'm changing people's lives with this music.
Changing.
And that's exactly what
straight
this
from
Jeremiah
God.
Sand thing is. Like, he's got that same complex.
Next, we see a crazy shot where Jeremiah explains his climb back from the bottom, where his face and Mandy's face morph in and out of each other, which was a super cool effect. And it took me a few seconds to realize that it was happening. I thought it was, and then I thought, no, this movie's so fucking trippy. It's just playing with my head. and then I saw the little Le Chef scar on her face. I was like, oh no, dude, this is awesome.
It reminded me of the Blade Runner 2049 shot where they put the
hologram
the
threesome.
hologram and the prostitute together. Except, I don't know, this was more like low budget than that one and probably took a hell of a lot less time, but like this one was really cool. Like, first, I had the same thing where the first time I'm watching it, I'm like, am I just like imagining this? And then I saw the eyes get black and I was like, oh, that's Mandy. That's Mandy's eyes for sure. And then the scar showed up. Yeah.
While this is all going on, he explains that God spoke to him and said that others are wrong and he was right, and that he was given permission to go out into the world and take what is rightfully his. Then he stands up and tells Mandy he wants them to be special together. He opens a robe and presents her with the treasure he was given by God, a flaccid, dangling penis.
It's our first actual penis on this show, which it took nine episodes, but
It took 9 episodes, and boy, did it pay off. Whoa, the wait was worth it. Mandy asks him if he wrote the song, and he explains that it's about him while he gropes himself, which was pretty disturbing. Mandy then starts laughing her ass off in the dumb shit's dangling apostle, which he doesn't take too kindly. Quick fact, this interaction was very similar to the first time my girlfriend saw my penis.
Disrobe and take a look at that.
soak it in, baby. Soak it in.
Then she laughed at me and I'm still a virgin 13 years later.
She laughed at me and then I burned her to death. Spoilers.
Spoiler alert. He tries giving himself a good tug, but she's completely ruined the mood and continues laughing as he jacks it, which is kind of a bummer, man. Her laughs get louder and louder as he yells, "Shut up, shut up, shut up," over and over again. He then points at each of the cult members in the room one at a time and tells them not to fucking look at him. If you haven't realized by now, this guy is just a little unhinged. I love it too. Like, he'll point at him. He's like, "Don't look at me! Don't fucking look at me!" And they all do this systematic turn. and then fucking creepy ass Red Foreman sitting there with a little grin on his face when his head's all turned sideways, like he's getting some pleasure out of it.
Yeah, it was like he's seeing his opportunity coming. You know, like he's going to be able to take over this great setup that they've got.
Right. Mainly dudes, one old lady, and then pregnant chick. That's the type of cult I want to be.
Live in a hole in a fucking abandoned quarry.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
You know, it sounds pretty appealing, actually, now that you say it that way.
Pretty dope.
Back outside of the druggy Purple Haze world we've been in since the murder hornet sting, Jeremiah cries like a bitch, saying,
Tell me what to do. Oh, tell me what to do. 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 Tell me what to do.
like 50 times into a mirror before finally arriving on the solution that comes next. I have to say, like, what a performance out of that dude. I mean, like, you see, like, he just, the way he transitions, saying that shit over and over again until he gets to that moment of clarity. Mm-hmm. I'm like, holy shit, dude.
You see that, like, cult leader facade, like, crumble and then show that he's just a pathetic piece of crap and then he has to build himself back up.
Yeah, he's got to
really
pep
cool.
himself back up into being this flaccid cult leader.
Yeah, Linus Roache did an amazing job in this. Like, I haven't really seen him in anything else. He's super British too, and he pulled off an amazing American accent all the way through. Sometimes you know, like Michael Caine, you can kind of tell.
Yeah, I had no idea.
But no, you never at one point, at any point, are like, oh, this guy's British and faking it.
No, not at all. I mean, he nailed that accent that they chose for his character.
Yeah.
And not once do you ever see him slip into a British accent, which is incredible because he gives, I mean, shit, he might have the most lines in this movie. I mean, he has monologue after monologue after monologue.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a fantastic actor. I gained a lot of appreciation. I've seen him in a couple things, like I think he's in a season of Homeland, if I remember correctly, that Showtime show. And then I'm pretty sure he was in the Riddick movies. I couldn't tell you which one, but I swear he was in one of them, which is interesting because not exactly the type of movies you'd expect somebody of his caliber to be in. But I mean, never mind. Sorry, Vin Diesel is a great A actor. All right. We'll get back into it. So we see Red tied up outside with a barbed wire around his wrist and over his mouth. A shirtless Jeremiah says, "You and that ugly little whore think you're so in love," to Red, and tells him he'll show him love. So he makes Lucy kneel in front of Red and play Russian roulette to show Red how much she loves Jeremiah. Because love.
Nothing says love more than Russian roulette.
Yeah.
Kill yourself, dummy. It's like that scene in, I think it was the first Conan the Barbarian, the first movie with James Earl Jones, where he says, I'll show you what power is, and come to me, child, and he makes the girl like jump off the edge of the cliff.
Off the temple.
Kind of the same sort of like blind devotion to a messiah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she gets an empty chamber and lives to see another rape-filled day of helping her Lord and Savior drag innocent people out of their houses, and watching him get hysterically upset when they don't instantly blow him because of how great the shitty soft rock album is he wrote about himself.
Imagine his cult leader kidnaps you. Hey, listen to my mixtape. It's gonna be great.
It's pretty slamming, right?
It's pretty slamming.
Death.
Can you imagine just getting railed by this dude and he's playing that shitty music in the background? You're already just in the worst situation you could ever imagine being in, and then he turns that bullshit on.
Oh God!
You're already raping me. Like, please, come on.
Don't rip my ears.
Yeah. Then Brother Swan calls a baffled and terrified Red human excrement and shows off his cruel Mall Ninja blade that they've charmingly nicknamed the Tainted Blade of the Pale Knight. That also gets a cool green strobe light effect when we see a close-up of it. Quick fact, this is the Tainted Blade of the Pale Knight, straight from the Abyssal Lair. This is a reference to Dungeons & Dragons fantasy role-playing game. Pale Knight is the mother of demons and an abyssal lord. So I guess we kind of gotta apologize. D&D really did contribute to people getting into satanic shit back in the 80s. So Mothers Against D&D, this is our official apology. We should have listened.
It was all that Slayer and D&D, man. 80s.
Yep. Creates fucking cults.
Figure, Nigel, I'm sure you have something you want to throw in here. You're the board game guy, obviously.
Yep.
I actually don't play that much D&D, even though I have a bunch of fucking D&D books, but I haven't had an opportunity to play it that much. Just the Abyssal Lair is basically like where demons come from in D&D. So like the Abyss is like one of their versions of hell. So I didn't realize that was what this was referencing. I thought it was just some other bullshit they made up for the movie, but I didn't bother to look up like I did for Abraxas, because I was like, I remember hearing about Abraxas at some point, so that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Well, real. But
that Abraxas.
I guess these guys like to LARP about stuff as well.
But they do the real LARPing, dude.
And I looked it up, and I did some briefs to see if the Pale Knight was like a lot of D&D stuff is based on real world mythology and religions and stuff, but it didn't seem like it. It seemed like it was something that was actually made up for D&D. So they probably just took that for the movie to make them sound cool with their fake Mall Ninja laser dagger.
But I picture like one of them right off camera, like with a green strobe light, like every time it comes out. You're taking out the Pale Knight. All right, hold on.
It's like, hold on. Reading the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons manual when he's giving the monologue about the Pale Knight.
Your human excrement. That's what it says here.
This gives me +2 to unholy damage.
Stab your ass.
Red's just fucking standing there like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
These D&D nerds are gonna fucking kill me? This is how I die?
Really? This is how it ends? Freaking like, huge lumberjack dude gets, him and his girl screwed over by these fucking weirdos who are into D&D.
Nerd-ass cult.
Have stupid Mall Ninja blades.
Have fucking green strobe lights, on the ready whenever they need it. What the fuck? So as you might imagine, Jeremiah stabs Red in the side with the Pale Knight and tells him that he's about to see the cleansing power of fire. Dun dun dun.
Possible Jesus allegory. Got a guy tied up, getting stabbed in the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he does say something about, the mistake that they made with Jesus, or like the mistake with crucifixion and all that stuff, or the problem with it.
The mistake Jesus made was that he didn't use a sacrifice or something.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
That he was the sacrifice.
Yeah, he was the sacrifice.
Instead of making someone else do it.
So we then see them drag Mandy out in a sack. They attach her to a pole and set her on fire, where she burns alive in front of Red, who screams out through tears in horror, while this gaggle of nut jobs stand around laughing and smirking. Brother Swan explains, the darker the whore, the brighter the light, as Red sobs while being forced to watch the love of his life die in front of him. This was a really good scene for Nick. I really enjoyed the range of emotion that he showed as this scene was taking place.
Yeah, he was amazing. I mean, you know, a lot of his performance is silent throughout this whole movie, and I feel like he steals every frickin' scene without saying a word.
Yeah,
this scene, it was silent. Like, he's screaming, but it's subdued. You don't hear it over the soundtrack or whatever that's playing. You just see him doing it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like he nailed the scenes. I mean, without having much dialogue, just the way that he carries himself throughout the film, especially in the third act. I mean, that takes a lot. That takes a lot, and that takes experience to be able to portray the range of emotions that he then goes through as he's cleansing these fools from this earth. The zealots take off, but make one huge mistake. They leave Red alive, figuring he'll die from the stab wound to the side, exposure, or both of those things. He, of course, gets free of his restraints straight away and crawls to the still smoldering ashes of his partner in life, where her head turns to dust in his hands. All this to build our seething hate for these assholes and to make the satisfaction that will come from Red killing each and every one of them all the more sweet.
Spoilers.
And boy, is it. Yeah, spoiler alert?
The knife wound doesn't seem to faze him at all through the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Which was interesting to me.
I always kind of wondered about that, because it would have been like right into his lung, right? I mean...
Yeah, they went right through his ribs. So it almost is like, you know, the movie's presented like a realistic thing that's happening, but there is something supernatural going on. Like, the knife didn't kill him. Instead, it gave him, like, this, made him this supernatural spirit of vengeance, is what I thought when I was watching it.
Yeah.
You know, like he isn't Ghost Rider. But yeah, it's one of those cool. I like the way the movie blends the two, where it's like, hey, you don't know if this is just a weird drug-fueled thing that's actually happening, and it just seems so fantastical because of the drugs, or if it's like a modern fairy tale, so things just are, you know, have like supernatural elements, or if there is a supernatural element going on, these mall ninja morons actually did stumble into some real, you know, demonic cult type stuff.
Yeah, they do a good job at kind of playing on that. You know, what's reality, what's not reality, especially as we start getting into the biker gang, and you actually see him interact with them. And all the lore behind them, too, that gets explained to him. Red stumbles into the house, bloodied in just his underwear. Good choice, guys. And in just his underwear and shirt with a tiger on it, and looks around bewildered. He finds his favorite shirt and the last shirt Mandy wore. Good old number 44 on the floor, and embraces it. He then watches a little TV. He sees a commercial for a macaroni and cheese company called Cheddar Goblin, that features a goblin puking mac and cheese on little kids while they scream with delight. What a weird goddamn thing to have punctuate the scene we just watched.
It's so confusing. Definitely one of my questions, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. There's a quick fact associated with that commercial. So the Cheddar Goblin commercial was directed by Casper Kelly, who directed the Adult Swim short Too Many Cooks, which fucking makes sense. It makes so much sense.
Yeah, when I read about that, I was like, oh, it's so good.
Perfect person to have associated with this film.
But yeah, it's kind of weird that it exists at all in the movie, but when I read that, I was like, all right, it's okay.
I don't really understand why it's there, but I think it was just kind of like, we needed like a moment to sort of process what happened, and like, and it's
Here's
like,
a goblin.
life is already weird. Let's just make it weirder. Like
This is like
cheddar
goblin.
Cheddar
I was
goblin.
watching. Cheddar goblin.
I watched
Get your
that.
mac and cheese before the cheddar goblin does.
I almost wonder if there's like something that happened in the director's life where some horrible shit happened, and then he was just regular old TV commercials were on TV, and juxtaposed with the horribleness that happened just made it seem all the more bizarre and surreal. So
I could see
like,
that.
maybe that's kind of what I got from it. I was like, because it serves no other purpose that I could tell.
It does make sense because, like, when terrible things happen, life just goes on, and it goes on immediately, and it's like this whole different world that is, you were previously experiencing while you were watching that sci-fi movie is now replaced by this completely different, crazy reality. But that world kept going. Your world has just come to a completely horrible end, basically, because the person he loved most in life is gone, and he's left in this frickin' place in the middle of the woods, clutching her shirt while watching the Cheddar Goblin. Which, by the way, I watched that. I've seen that Too Many Cooks short like 100 times. I watch that thing like every couple of months. Just it's just so good.
It's so good.
I finally got it out of my head after about 5 years.
Well,
And
you're
then it came
welcome.
crashing back when I read that was Too Many Cooks guy.
Red collapses and falls asleep, clutching Mandy's shirt. He has a heavy metal-inspired cartoon dream where he sees Mandy rotting with white eyes, moaning in pain as her jaw unhinges. He wakes up from the nightmare and heads to the bathroom for the cagiest freak out of the film. He digs a bottle of alcohol from a dresser and starts chugging it through screams of anguish that get louder and angrier with each drink until he sits down on the toilet and starts crying in pain. On the surface, bloody Nick Cage in his underwear and a tiger t-shirt, screaming like a madman in a bathroom where someone threw up the 70s all over the walls is hilarious. But in context of the film and in this particular scene, it's quite heartbreaking.
Yeah, I wanted to have fun. Like when he starts going, I'm like, okay, here it comes. And then when he like sits down in the toilet and it just turns into that like shrieking sob, like that was like, it just took it to this entire different level of like, here's crazy Nick Cage doing a crazy Nick Cage thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, that's that character who just lost his partner in life, I don't know if they were ever married. I don't think they were, because I just figured that they were, they lived together and.
I kind of took that too. I don't think they were married. I think they were just.
I kept wanting to say wife, but I know it's not. It's
well, they have different last names, right? In the credits.
But like I figure they seemed like they've been together long enough to where it's like it's basically he just lost his wife,
Yeah.
So that was some heartbreaking shit.
Yeah, it really was. He nailed that performance. The pain in his performance is pretty palpable and gut-wrenching as he tries to drink away the horrifying vision of his love being brutally murdered in front of him for no goddamn reason.
I don't know if we could even, like, the way you gotta describe it, like, he downs the whole. It's coupled with, like, if we assume that he's a recovering alcoholic, he's got this fifth of vodka settled away somewhere, and he drinks the whole bottle. And the way he does it, like, he's chugging it and then he's screaming about it. And it's also like coupled with, he's finally given in. He's drinking alcohol again, which is an alcoholic will never want to do if they've tried to get over it. And he's like grabbing his throat as he does it because it's burning and like choking on it. And then goes back to screaming and then chugging it and like growling and slamming his fist down. It's so visceral. And it's such a great, like, it's such a great performance.
Yeah,
you can also
I love the extra touch.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I love the extra touch of him pouring the vodka on his wounds too to cleanse it on the stab wound and on his knuckles and his hands and it was just like you said, it was just very animalistic. It's very guttural when he's screaming. The pain was very, very palpable.
And I love that, like, you can tell that they just let Nick Cage go. And because the camera's like trying to like follow him, like they're like, oh, I don't know if he's going to stand up
even
or
flinches.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, that makes it even better because it's like they didn't know what he was going to do.
The camera even flinches.
Yeah.
Like, there's a part where he's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Like, I didn't know if it was like the camera operator screwed up or if it was an intentional, like.
No, I think that they were like expecting him to stand up, and you know, I think they didn't know what he was going to do. I don't think they had any idea.
Yeah. But it's all one long take, so they couldn't redo it, so they just left that part in. But it works because it's almost like you're looming in to watch him, and then you're like, ooh.
Yeah. So actually, here's a quick fact that I didn't think I'd be able to bring up, but it actually plays in perfectly here. So talking during the interview, the writer and director, because did he direct it as well?
Cosmatos?
Panos?
Yeah.
Or Cosmatos. So he did mention that he sees films nowadays, like everybody wants to have a really clean film where it's cut perfectly and every camera angle is perfect, right? It's all mapped out. But he loves that like kind of rough, gritty type of film, you know, like there's going to be mistakes, and as long as they're not big mistakes, like leave them in there because it makes it feel more real. So that definitely that lines up with that particular scene. Like that's something that I could imagine he loved, because Nick Cage did talk about, you know, they did do a lot of like one take scenes, or not one take scenes, but like one long shots, right, for the scene. And so that both those things like cue in, and that makes sense. So I bet you they did tell him, hey, just like do what you want to do, and the cameraman was not prepared for him to stand back up, because that's when the guy is pushing in that he comes back. But because it was just so organic and it really fit that whole scene very well, that just leave it in instead of reshooting.
Yeah, I've seen you know, every time Nick Cage does a crazy thing in a film, somebody puts out a video of like, here's just the crazy thing, and with no context whatsoever. So I saw that's a clip on YouTube now of just him screaming like crazy in his underwear and his tiger shirt, drinking and stuff. And I'm like, come on, man! It's just like Vampire's Kiss, like. Out of context, it doesn't make sense, and it's weird. But like, you missed an hour straight of build-up for that scene that makes it super powerful and like an incredible performance from Nick Cage. I will never stop defending this man. Aside from in Dog Eat Dog, holy shit.
Yeah, it's funny when you you know, comments about the movies like, oh shit, I didn't realize Nick Cage could act. It's like, still, you see people commenting on this movie like, I didn't realize he could give a performance like that. But you know, like we've only watched 6 movies, and you can see that range, or 7 or however movies we're on. Like you can see that if you watch more than 2 Nicolas Cage movies, then you know that he can give performances like that. That's sort of his thing.
I think that's
just a weird take to me.
The best thing about this whole show in general is like, I didn't know what this movie was. I didn't really have a clue, and this is a hidden gem, just incredible performance from him that like probably never would have seen, never would have even thought of. And it's like, stop just immediately figuring that they're going to be crap movies. Like Nick Cage makes interesting decisions. I think that's his whole mission in life, is like every time out he wants it to be interesting for him. He wants it to be unique and different, and like, you know, he swings for the fences. Sometimes he strikes out, but sometimes he hits some home runs, and this one is a home run, in my opinion.
Yep.
Act 3, The Resolution.
Next, we see Red sporting good old number 44 as he drives to Mac from the Predator's house. It's 100% true. Black don't crack, because that dude looks exactly the same as the first. The first time I ever saw him was in the Predator, like 30 years ago. He looks exactly the same. I mean, like a little bit, saggier, but it's the same guy. He looks exactly the same.
I was trying to figure out who it was because I recognized him, but I couldn't place it. And I had that weird feeling of like, I recognize him from like a really old movie, but he looks the same, so it's super confusing.
It was like 88, right? Was the Predator? So it's been 30 years in between that movie and this movie, and he looks goddamn near exactly the same. Look at Schwarzenegger versus 87. What he looked like in 87 versus now.
87, it's just crazy.
So Black don't crack. Red says he's come for the Reaper, and Max says, over here, and produces Red's crossbow. Get ready for some Predator jokes. They're coming.
This is awesome.
I assumed that like they put him in army fatigues on purpose. That this is like these two served together at some point. That was the interpretation I got.
Yeah, they went to bust some drug lords in Colombia one time. You know, and some weird shit happened.
Yeah,
They don't talk about it though.
Chameleon came out of the woods or out of the jungle. Mac asks Red what he plans to do with it, and he says he's going hunting. Max says, if you're going hunting, I've got some other shit you might want, and tells him to turn around to the cupboard where he has a few arrows. Predator? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Then Red says he's hunting for Jesus freaks, to which Max says, I didn't know there was a season for that. Which I thought was a funny line.
Great.
Then he explains to Mac what happened to Mandy, and like I wanted to make it a Cagiest moment, but it's also another one of those things that's just heartbreaking. Like they set her on fire. That whole thing. Oh my god. Like it's got some funny moments, but like if I put the whole thing in there, it's just seems sad almost. I don't know.
Yeah.
He tells Mac all about what happened to Mandy and about the psychos that showed up, weird biker dudes and all that stuff, which makes Mac immediately launch into exposition about the cult. He explains that truckers have been coming up dead, prostitutes vanishing, and gutted bodies have been showing up on doorsteps, and blames it on a group called the Black Skulls. So I guess the Black Skulls are different from the cult, because the cult is the children of whatever. What was it? Children of the New Dawn. Children of the New Dawn. And I'm guessing the bikers are the Black Skulls, right?
Yeah, it's a biker gang.
Apparently, there are stories of a biker gang that ran courier for a manufacturer of LSD that took a disliking to this crazy biker gang and cooked up a tainted batch that made them all completely insane. Which sort of explains it, but doesn't explain why they sound like demons every time they talk.
Right.
That's the origin story for like the Raiders in the Fallout games. Is they're all like hopped up on drugs and they so much that they go insane and they just are constantly tripping, which is why they're so violent and
Makes
deadly.
sense.
Which I thought was funny.
I would definitely say that he probably is like a fan of like RPGs and stuff.
Probably, yeah.
He's got some real role-playing stuff in there throughout. He tells Red that he should go into this revenge knowing that his odds aren't good and that he'll probably die, to which Red says, don't be negative. Which I love, as like nicely undercuts that scene. Especially after that heartfelt like rant about the crazy people who killed his girl. Max says that they were spotted near Spirit River and that when he saw them, they were in a world of pain. And the craziest thing is they fucking loved it. Red says, thanks for the info. And Max says, anytime. He didn't say any of that Predator stuff, just so you know. Back at Red's, shit gets badass. Red forges a huge steel axe straight off of a heavy metal album cover. Literally, this was inspired directly from the logo for the metal band's Celtic Frost. If you look at their like the F and the T in the Celtic Frost logo, it's exactly that axe, which I thought was pretty badass.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Then finally we see the title of the film, Mandy, in heavy metal band logo font spill its way onto the screen. Red speeds through the forest in his Bronco at top speed in the night. He finds a perch in the woods and waits for the biker freaks to make an appearance. He shoots one down with an arrow that Mac explained would cut through bone like a fat kid through cake. So it's nice that they did one last kind of shout out to Thurman Merman now that he's out of the picture. There's one more little homage. He hits one in the neck, right? Like that first one goes down.
Yeah.
Knocks it off of its bike. and then he hops in the truck and runs him down. And this dude must have been built like a brick shithouse, because hitting him causes Red's Bronco to flip, knocking Red completely out. He just like hits it like he just ran into like a concrete barrier.
Yeah.
Which I'm not really sure if that was supposed to like show, oh, look how tough these bikers are, or like what the hell
I think
was
it was
going
just
on.
supposed to look badass.
Yeah.
Like at this point, we're like in full
the rest of the
fantasy
movie.
world.
Yeah.
It's just full fucking death metal music video shit.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Yeah, from here on out is just dope. He sees another vision of Mandy after he passes out in cartoon form again. This time she's deep in the water, naked, snarling with red eyes. I feel like each one of these little cartoon things has like some symbolism, but I'm not really entirely sure. The only one that really, really made sense was when she pulls the green thing out of the tiger, you know, like the wounded tiger.
Yeah.
But the rest of these, I'm kind of like, you know, she's crying out for help maybe in the first one, and the second one, she's like trying to give him strength, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're all reflections of his state of mind in it. So the first one, like she's dead, turned into a zombie, and it's sort of reflecting on, obviously he just watched her die, but now he's dead basically inside, like that part of him's dead. The part of him that is her is dead and rotting away. I just now realized with that tiger one and the emerald, it harkens back to that passage she reads out of the book when the guy pulls the shining emerald green stone out of the whatever
That's
thing.
right.
So I'm glad I read that, because it'll make sense.
Yeah.
And I think the tiger's supposed to be him.
Yeah,
which I think is
definitely.
what that thing at the end with the picture of him, and she pulls that out of him or whatever.
He wakes up in the den of the demon bikers, handcuffed to a radiator, and has his other hand nailed to the floor. A demon
He's
biker.
in a Saw movie now.
Is that the same thing? Want to play a game?
One of the demon biker dudes slices him across the chest, prompting Red to say,
That was my favorite shirt.
which is, of course, it's number 44. You know, it's funny in context, but it was, you know, that really was his favorite shirt, which comes back, actually. The biker guy punches him in the face and asks if he has a death wish in a kind of weird hiss, which Red says, I don't want to talk about that. Which was probably
I
my
had
favorite.
subtitles on, because like everything these guys say, you could be forgiven for not completely even understanding they were saying words, and just not it was just like demonic guttural growling and rasping and stuff.
Which apparently that LSD that they're on really affects your vocal cords, because he also ends up with the demon voice later on.
Yeah.
Anyways, he says, I don't want to talk about that. Then he calls the dude a vicious snowflake and kicks him in the leg, pulls the pipe off the wall, then that he was handcuffed to, and beats the biker till he falls into a huge open pit that's like 2 inches from them. Like,
yeah, it's just a bottomless pit next to him.
The snowflake thing, I actually saw like a little thing on IMDb of that term didn't come around until Fight Club. That was actually where that was first coined, was you know, you're something or other snowflake, that he says, I forget what the context was, but yeah, that's the first ever literary mention of snowflake in pop culture, and so that wouldn't have made sense in 1983. Wouldn't even have known. Red pulls the nail out of his hand, finds a rusty box cutter, and heads upstairs to see the rest of this charming house of horrors. Next, he sees a dead woman with a man who has apparently been raped to death, judging by him being naked with a very bloody ass, draped over the woman in some random room in this trailer or house or whatever this is.
The mobile home,
Yeah.
I think. With a basement for some reason.
Yeah. With a basement with the giant pit in it.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
Maybe part
it doesn't
of
have to make sense anymore.
Maybe it's part of the mine or the quarry that, you know, maybe it's like a farther outstretch of that. I feel like this whole area is owned by this cult or owned by these LSD bikers or something. I don't know. But it's just kind of a big open area in the woods, which do exist. There are a lot of places where somebody owns 300 acres that you don't know what the hell is going on that land. And this is apparently what's happening. Red walks through the kitchen, and I have to say, these biker demons are really bad at keeping up with the house chores. Dirty dishes everywhere, and there's papers and clothing all over the stove. I mean, that's a fire waiting to happen. Just Red flicking that cigarette.
Yeah.
A lot of these things can be prevented. Just so you know. Red spots a biker dude snarling and snorting a huge pile of crank or something while watching porn, as you do. Just sitting there with your big giant strap-on knife blade cock, snorting crack or whatever the hell he's snorting there, and watching porn, and making some snarl noises to yourself.
He's a fuck pig. He's snorting like a pig.
Yeah, in the credits he's named Fuck Pig, which is great. This guy also sports a strap-on knife blade straight out of the movie Seven. If you remember that scene in Seven where he forces him to have sex with the girl while he's wearing one of those. And I'm guessing that correlates to the raped guy in the other room, since it's still dripping blood. So must have just had an unfortunate encounter on the road and got pulled into this crazy world and raped to death while not actually being raped. Just, stabbed from the anus out. That's how I want to go. That's how I want to go. The freak catches Red's reflection in the porno that he's watching and sees him come at him with the box cutter. After a struggle, the demon biker falls on top of him, and his strap-on blade cock gets stuck in the floor, giving Red the chance to slice open this dude's throat, unleashing gallons of blood straight onto Red's face. He's probably going to need a tetanus shot or a Hep C test after this is all said and done.
Dude, it's the 80s. That guy definitely has AIDS. At least HIV.
Especially after raping all these random people on the road and shit.
And you just know they've been sharing needles.
Red laughs in the creature's face as it dies and then throws it off of him. I didn't know, I'm sure they're men, but they're just creatures at this point.
Yeah, they're like demons, basically. That's what he's just descended down into hell, which happens in a lot of these movies, it seems like.
Yeah.
There's some kind of descent into hell moment, which is kind of
that's kind of what this whole end is these godly people really live in a hole with nothing around them. Suddenly, a gunshot comes out of nowhere, and Red looks up to see the same freak who fell down the bottomless pit downstairs firing a shotgun at him at point-blank range, but somehow completely misses him. Nick Cage screams, "You ripped my shirt!" in a way only he could, and then snaps the dude's neck and gives this crazed look at the camera for a second, which I really appreciated. That felt just like Ash out of the Evil Dead movies.
Yeah. I was really hoping he was going to be like, "Who sent you, baby girl? Who sent you?" Before snapping the guy's neck. But,
I really wonder, because right before that, when the fuck pig falls on him, he somehow doesn't stab him. He just stabs into the floor.
Yeah.
And this guy misses him with a shotgun from point blank range. I really wonder if he's supernaturally immortal now at this point.
Maybe that's what the stab was,
Right. There's some kind of supernatural powers keeping him from getting harmed until he carries out his vengeance or something like that.
Either that or these guys are all just completely blitzed on all these drugs that they're taking all the time and probably seeing 3 of Nick Cage everywhere he goes.
Well, yeah, because we see in a little bit what they're seeing. We get a small literal taste of what their lives are like.
Yeah. That's coming right up. Then he takes a big old snort of whatever crazy drug these maniacs have been snorting and tracks down the axe he forged. They displayed it already. They've already got it all put up on the shelf. He finds his crossbow, and then he finds a jar of LSD that he immediately sticks his finger in and licks. This causes a sudden Raiders of the Lost Ark face melting scene and gets him all sorts of jacked for the adventure to come. I love that, stare into the camera, with huge eyes.
This part, he's like becoming them, basically. Like he's covered in their blood, and he puts on one of their vests and stuff, and he's just like turning into these monsters in order to fight them.
Which I think they alluded to at the very end that, you know, he basically is gone. Like, and Max said, whatever, Carruthers, that's his actual name. But Max from The Predator said that these guys just aren't, you know, they're never going to be the same. They're just completely crazy after that first drop of acid, or hit of acid. They just never were the same again, which, you know, from the looks of it, it doesn't seem like Red is ever going to be Red again. He spots the last of the demon bikers chilling by a car fire, roasting some marshmallows and contemplating what all this life stuff is about. Just kind of chilling out outside, you know. Didn't hear the gunshots or anything from inside. It's just chilling out.
Hey, sometimes you just gotta
mellow yourself.
Stare into the fire, and you know,
just
let all the cares of the world drop away, and just relax by the fire.
Focus on what's important. Yourself.
Yeah, you gotta take some personal time sometimes. You know.
Red shoots him through the neck with an arrow, and the freak just pulls the arrow out the other side while blood spurts from the wound like it's nothing. LSD is a hell of a drug, that's all I'm saying. Red heads to him, huge axe in hand. He slices at him, and of course, the biker is ready for it. Despite this life-ending wound that the biker sustained, they go round and round for a few minutes before the biker says, "She's burning!" Which makes Red a little cranky, so he kicks the bastard into the burning car. This dude roasts for a few minutes, screaming, "She burns! She burns!" And then Red chops his head off.
William Hung making a surprise cameo.
She burns! He then spots a cigarette on the ground and lights it off of this dead dude's flaming head. It's just metal as fuck moment after metal as fuck moment from here on out.
And this whole thing reminded me of like a Mortal Kombat fight too. Like even right down to getting shot through the neck and not killing him. It was like those X-ray things the new Mortal Kombat games do. And then he just beats the guy to death and then throws him into a fire and chops his head off.
Finish him.
That's the finishing move, is smoke a cigarette off of the flaming head.
Yep.
Red smokes his cigarette while looking cracked the F out, staring directly into the camera. He rides one of the demon dude's bikes to a radio tower that appeared in his LSD vision, and finds a big metal shed underneath it. Inside, we meet the cult's chemist, who is cooking up a batch of LSD as we speak. I don't remember seeing this guy in any of the other shots, so maybe he's he's sort of the free agent of the group, you know? He just gets to do his own thing. Well, he doesn't have to follow them around while they torture people and stuff.
Right. He just makes the LSD.
He's got to make the medicine. He hears Red coming and reaches for his gold Luger. And who doesn't have one of those laying around, you know?
Yeah, he's the man with the golden gun. I've been waiting for you, Mr. Bond.
He decides not to grab the gun and instead turns around to face Red. And then the lights come on with some crazy, musical beat to each of the lights, which was pretty cool. We see this dude has a Bengal tiger in a cage. I'd think that was strange, but after hearing how cheap meth addicts are selling those things on Tiger King, it honestly makes a whole lot of sense that these guys would have tigers. Of course he's got a tiger.
He's like, hey, I was doing it a favor. I rescued it from these
it's the least weird
people.
thing.
Yeah, really.
It's the least weird thing what's going on.
Yeah, it really is.
He sneaks some of he sucks some of the residual LSD left on his finger from the batch he was making, I guess, to take the edge off of this little encounter with this crazy bloody dude.
That can't be hygienic.
No.
Come on, dude.
I mean, you're making this for other people. You got to at least wash your hands.
Fucking glove up here, buddy.
Think about it. Yeah, he's not even wearing gloves. Wouldn't that soak into your skin, like if you were touching it with your bare hands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's why he's on this another cloud where he can sense
he just lives in a
and
different
stuff.
realm at this point.
Red stares this dude down without saying a word, and the chemist says, "You're right." and he lets the tiger go so it can fend for itself, since I guess he knows he's probably about to die. I'm guessing that was what was going on there. I was like, he's just like, you're right, I should let the tiger go so that they can be loose, because you're not coming back for it. I don't know. A lot being said there without saying anything. He looks at Red, who is covered in blood and looking insane, and says, "Oh man, they wronged you," and tells him that he exudes the cosmic darkness. Next, we see huge millipedes at Red's feet, which I guess is part of the cosmic darkness, or just in this dude's drug trance or something. I don't really get that. It's one of my questions. But it was, I guess, a cool little, like, music video or horror movie moment to have right there.
Right, that's what I mean. It's like sometimes you just got to stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
And just, that's unsettling and weird. Cool.
Yeah, neat.
Yeah.
He tells Red where to find the cult's headquarters, and Nick Cage doesn't say one line in this entire scene, but still manages to be brilliant throughout the whole thing. I mean, he really just kind of holds one look through the whole thing, and it's just kicks ass. This whole movie kicks ass. Red heads through some tunnels on a four-wheeler until getting stuck in some mud in a quarry filled with a bunch of like burnt-out cars that look like they were the cult's victims and stuff, or the biker gang or whatever. I mean, at this point, it seems like they're just kind of they do things in tandem.
Yeah.
So then he heads in on foot. Before apparently going to sleep, because we see another cartoon. This time it's an injured purple tiger being pet by a naked Mandy. She pulls a glowing green organ or rock or something out of the tiger's wound, which is in the same spot that Red was stabbed, with the pale night blade, and then she holds it up into the air while it flashes and stuff, which I guess does tie back to that line from the fantasy novel from earlier that she was reading.
The green strobe light on the knife and on the Raxus thing.
That's true too.
There's something tied together.
Yeah. Red wakes up to the sight of a salamander just staring at him from the banks of a stream that seems to be near like a clear-cut forest, like the whole
you can hear chainsaws going off.
Really?
So, even in the subtitle it says chainsaws revving in the distance or whatever, which is foreshadowing, but also ties back to, his work as a
and
lumberjack.
being a lumberjack, yeah.
He's like, oh shit, I'm late for work.
Come on, Sally, you gotta wake me up next time.
It makes me wonder, like, if there was something there, like some sort of symbolism, or is this in his head? Because the salamander it looks fake, but it actually apparently was a real salamander that they pulled out for that. But because I saw behind the scenes and they were holding the salamander in their hand. Anyways, next we see Red looking over a cliff.
There's a salamander in Color Out of Space too. It comes out of the well.
Maybe that's their thing.
Oh yeah, that's their calling
I just
card.
remembered that. Yeah. Salamanders are cool, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
they just look cool.
Yeah. It's the lifeblood of our ecosystem. The salamanders are gone, it's just like the bees. Next, we see Red looking over a cliff into a quarry with a wooden church down at the bottom, which seems like a strange place to put your church, but to each their own. The rape van we saw the cult in earlier speeds out of the quarry, and we see it in the forest next, where it runs over some spikes that Red took from the cracked out biker gang guys. I don't know if he had those or he just took them from them, but he pulled them out of the sink. I was wondering where those came from, and I saw it on the second viewing.
More D&D references. They look like caltrops that rogues can throw in D&D to slow down enemies and stuff.
I'll have to take your word for that. I don't know. I don't know enough about D&D. Turns out our old pal, Brother Swan, is driving, and he says, "This is really not ideal," and hops out to fix the tire. But as he does, Red punches him in the face. He then headbutts him and he drops to the ground, where he says, "She burned brightly, Mandy," which is probably not the best choice of words at this moment, because Red then drives the sharpened handle of the axe into Brother Swan's big mouth, where he dies slowly gurgling a gallon of blood, which is another metal-ass scene. Sister Lucy watches on crying, and Red lets her go, while the music I've heard in every single Mexican restaurant I've ever been to plays in the background for some reason. Not really sure what that was about, but we find out the music.
Even, the subtitles even say the name of the song, and I can't remember what it is. Plays like.
I don't know. I feel like they even mentioned it in the behind the scenes of like it being important for some reason, and I'm not really sure why exactly. I think probably the translation, the words have something to do with what's going on here.
I don't know. All I know is I got a craving for chips and salsa.
Hey, some carne asada and a Pacifico. Yeah. We find out the music is coming from the mouth-breathing doofus who cuts his own hair's car that he is washing with his own spit, which is gross. Thankfully, we see Red's axe spinning in from out of frame, and it's embedded in this moron's head, killing him instantly with blood spraying from his mulleted head. I was just glad there wasn't like a fight at all, because like really there shouldn't be a fight. Like that guy would die instantly.
This dweeb, yeah.
I thought the exact same thing. I was like, thank God he just axed him from a mile away. I don't want to see Butthead and Red get into a fight.
Yeah, he's like Beavis and Butthead combined into one person.
He really is. He really is.
Red slowly makes his way to the next zealot, but decides to grab a chainsaw first. He makes his way to the next victim while still trying to start the chainsaw. But wouldn't you know it, this guy also has a chainsaw, and it's 20 feet long. That's right, folks. Chainsaw duel. Quick fact, the chainsaw fight had to be filmed all in one night, apparently, and Panos Cosmatos said that it was a straight-up living hell to shoot. Which I can imagine.
I wonder why.
But it was fucking dope, dude, so good job.
Yeah, he's metal.
Red finally gets his saw started, and as it turns out, his career as a lumberjack comes in handy because he happens to be pretty great with this chainsaw. They battle for a few seconds before Big Chainsaw Guy knocks Red's away while also losing his in the process, just like that scene in Princess Bride, you know, when they both knock their swords away. He starts coming at him, but Red grabs a nearby chain just like he does in Ghost Rider and lassos it around this guy's neck and pulls him down onto his own still running chainsaw, spraying his insides everywhere. Metal as fuck.
Another Mortal Kombat fatality.
Yeah.
It would have been more metal as if they'd somehow lit the chainsaw on fire.
Oh my God, that would have been awesome. Yeah, I just thought, you know, he's probably glad he had all that training for Ghost Rider because it really came in handy.
How hard it would be to throw a big fucking chain like that. Like how much that thing has to weigh.
Yeah.
To whip it around this guy's neck.
I mean, you know, he's a lumberjack and he's okay. Sleeps all night, works all day.
Okay. God damn it.
Finally,
he puts on women's clothing too because he wears Mandy's shirt.
He does, doesn't he?
He hangs around in bars at the beginning. He does
hang around in bars.
That's how he met Mandy.
That's how he met her. All ties back. This is a prequel story to that song from Monty Python. All right, here we go. This is when shit gets dope. Finally, we see the church at the bottom of the quarry. Red walks into it, accompanied by the sound of some heavy metal drums and droning guitar that still gave me chills even after 3 viewings. Oh, it's so awesome. Red walks in, he finds like a little pulpit that has a Bible on it. He looks at it for a second and just throws it on the ground and then starts crawling down a shaft leading underneath the church. Which makes sense that these guys would all be living in a fucking hole in the ground underneath the church rather than being inside of the house of God. They live deep beneath it in this mine pit. He makes his way down a long shaft before arriving at the gray-haired heathen herself. He finds her crying in her empty, weird room where she apparently just sleeps on the floor. They don't have any furniture and any of this stuff, which I guess, you know, goes back to the, like, you have to suffer because, you know, we're all just, you know, trying to appease God and we're not allowed to have anything nice and all that kind of stuff. Even Jeremiah doesn't have anything in his pit.
Nope.
Which I'm assuming he's probably got another place that he goes outside of that little hole that he's in.
That's where he delivers his sermons by himself.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's where he goes to commune with God or something.
He says God's in that room, which, you know, we'll get to. But she tries to seduce Red by saying Jeremiah says she's the most sensitive lover he's ever had. Red gives her a nice 1,000-yard stare, and unfortunately off screen cuts her head off, because I really would have liked to have seen that scene where he just...
Yeah, me too.
You know what?
Yeah.
Sure.
I was worried he let her
Make
go.
love to you after your head is gone.
I was worried they let her go like he did Lucy.
Yeah.
Like he let Lucy leave.
Lucy might have been innocent, but I still think it was a mistake letting Lucy go.
Yeah.
This bitch definitely deserved it. Finally, we reach the Messiah himself. Jeremiah gropes at the walls in his underwear as Red approaches. He says, "Come no closer. God is in this room." To which Red answers by chucking the gray-haired lady's head at him. Which gives him a nice little yelp. I like that.
Yeah, I love that.
But, that's kind of what I'm saying is like, I think that, that's where he goes to commune with God and probably trips out on acid and shit.
Yeah.
I think that there's like, it's a hole, like it's an actual hole, and there's light coming in from up above or something. I wasn't totally sure about that one. Because it seems like Red goes pretty deep into this mine to get to these freaks.
Yeah, it must be that they built their church over a mine shaft.
Yeah.
And that's, which, I wonder if it's like supposed to be like the Oracle of Delphi from the old Greeks, because they had their temple on this fissure in the mountains where this natural gas would come up, and they'd go inhale it and have hallucinations and shit. That's how the oracles heard from the gods. That was like that's what archaeologists think caused it, was like toxic gases they were inhaling and having tripping out.
Makes so much sense. Yeah, that actually, that could be what's happening. And mines are known to be filled with all sorts of crazy noxious gases and stuff. That could be part of why these people are the way that they are. Jeremiah says Red can't harm him because look at all God provides: a dirty hole in the ground and an abandoned quarry. Sweet. Sign me up. He says Red is just meat without a soul or a brain, and that he has no spirit everlasting or radiant light. Then Red starts talking like one of the demon bikers in a kind of monster voice and says, "The psychotic drones where the mystic swims. You're drowning, I'm swimming." Which is fucking metal as hell. I don't know exactly what it means. But it feels like, like that line that Jules delivers in Pulp Fiction, where it's just like, just sounds like some badass shit to say before you cap a motherfucker,
I kind of feel like this whole thing is like he's the embodiment of what these people actually want, like what their cult tries to, like they're just the posers doing drugs and thinking they're actually tapped into this cosmic shit, and for whatever reason he actually is, like he's become the cosmic warrior, like the chief archon, Abraxas, whatever. Like that's why he's able to that he's swimming in all of the stuff that they wish that they were in, but they're just drowning in it, and he's actually the revelation or whatever. He's the dark messiah, whatever you want to call it.
Jeremiah calls him an unholy abomination that isn't even worth his spit. He offers to save Red's soul, but when Red grabs him, he turns into a sniveling shit. He tells Red that this was all part of his journey to his own salvation, to Red's salvation. But when the religious bullshit doesn't work, he tries to give Red a blowjob so he won't kill him.
I'll blow you, man. I'll suck your fucking dick. Is that what you want out of me?
Which I thought was probably the most realistic thing in this whole movie. It's like, I'll suck your dick, man. Just don't kill me. I'll suck your dick. Just please don't. I don't care that you killed all those other people. They meant nothing to me. Which I'm sure they meant nothing to him, obviously.
Yeah.
Then he flips out and says, "I don't kneel before you. You kneel before me. I carry God's gift in my heart, not you." Red then says,
I'm your God now.
and then he crushes Jeremiah's head with his bare hands. It's just fucking dope. With Jeremiah dead, Red sets fire to the whole compound. He hops in the mouth breather's car he was cleaning with his spit, and then he has a flashback to the first time he met Mandy. They lock eyes across a smoky bar, and then light radiates out from Red when he sees her, which I think goes right back to, him saying that, Jeremiah saying that he radiates light, but Red doesn't. I think that was a callback to that. Next, we see him in the car without all the blood on him and looking like his normal self again. He sees Mandy sitting next to him, smiling back. It cuts back to him, and he's back to being covered in blood and looking insane. And then it goes back to her smoking a cigarette in a different T-shirt, like maybe this is, I don't know, like their first time and then their last time seeing each other. I don't know exactly what the idea was, but she's smiling back at him, and he's smiling at the apparition of her with just this incredibly insane grin on his face. The final shot of the film is Red driving through the forest. The camera pans up, revealing a fantasy novel-looking scene of twisted rock formations and 2 planets in the sky as the sun is rising. The end. What a crazy trip that movie is, but so satisfying. Such a great movie.
We have a Coppola questions before we move on.
I just have a few. Mostly they're things that are super open to interpretation. First one is, what exactly was with the deer at the beginning of the film? In my mind, it symbolizes Mandy and and kind of what was about to befall her and the end of her journey in this life as kind of this helpless fawn in the forest that needed the protection of somebody, but there was nobody there to protect it, and it ended up dying. Mauled by something off screen. It looked like maybe a cougar or something, but then it wasn't eaten. Right. It's just mauled and left for dead.
Which is also like a senselessly killed thing. Yeah. Like there's no, which is also ties into what happened to her.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Any theories on that?
No, that sounds just as plausible as anything I can come up with.
Yeah,
like it's just a reflection of her, and I think, like you mentioned before, it's like a reflection of her gentle soul because she weeps over it, and she goes out and looking for it after she hears this weird, it sounds like a Bigfoot haul or something. Yeah, goes wandering out into the mist-filled woods, and again, I kind of feel like a lot of this movie is like a modern fairy tale. And there's always that thing of like, the maiden going out into the woods, maybe by herself and seeing some, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but like Snow White can charm animals, and I think Cinderella does as well. Maybe it was part of that, but instead of charming a fawn, she finds a dead, mutilated one. Yeah.
So, I feel a lot of that kind of like fantasy novel kind of vibe throughout this whole thing, and that totally plays into it, like a helpless maiden out in the forest by herself.
I mean, there's a lot of it too. Like he's a woodsman, that's a character in a lot of fairy tales. There's the lumberjack or the woodsman or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure we all had this question, and I'm sure everybody who's ever watched this movie has had this question. But what the fuck was with that Cheddar Goblin commercial? Like, what was that? Why was that in there? Yeah. I mean, your idea, Nigel, of it like, potentially being something that Panos Cosmatos actually experienced, something terrible happens and then you're just, watching TV and like your brain can't even handle what the fuck is going on the TV.
Right. So he's sort of like Cheddar Goblin. Like he's just, like he's so out of it, like Cheddar Goblin. Maybe it's a funny commercial and his past self would have laughed at it, been amused by it, but that doesn't exist anymore, and his brain's just sort of misfiring off of it.
I mean, it was very intentionally put in the film, and I just wonder, like, what was the writing process behind that? Like, I mean,
they need a fake commercial.
I feel like maybe that's where it started.
With the guy who directed Too Many Cooks?
I don't know.
Like,
but like, I think maybe it started as like, let's just put some mundane commercial in here to kind of undercut this scene and kind of like bring us back to reality for a moment. And, you know, kind of like him dealing with this crazy whole thing. But then it turned into the fucking Too Many Cooks guy made it so it just was weird as fuck.
He's fucking puking. He's puking mac and cheese.
It's just puking on these children, and they're just giggling with the light. And then there's that scene of the goblin coming out of the macaroni and cheese to that droning like, brrr, which is very on brand with the guy who did Too Many Cooks.
And maybe it's like we talked about this sometime offline, where it's like an inverse of Dog Eat Dog, where he's intentionally doing something unsettling to make you question what's going on, but it works in the overall fabric of the movie in a way that nothing in Dog Eat Dog world works. So maybe it's just that. Yeah, it's supposed to be a normal commercial, but we're seeing this twisted reflection of it because the whole world's gone topsy-turvy now and everything is kind of slightly altered and weird, and maybe we're not supposed to look too deeply into it other than just be unsettled to kind of heighten the sensation of what's going on and heighten the and I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, to sympathize more with Red about everything's just all fucked up and weird. So we can't even like enjoy a commercial now. Where it's like,
now it's just weird as fuck. I love it though. I mean, it's a great weird ass little commercial.
But it's like I said, you know, you don't have that sense of like the director's doing it to fuck with you just because he has this contempt for the audience. It's like he's doing things that
like
are
Paul
weird,
Schrader,
even if they like even if they don't make sense. It's still fine. It works in the overall theme of the movie, but it's not done with like a gotcha to the audience type of thing. It's done very intentionally with respect to the audience.
They should have just made this scene black and white for no reason. Just because. Spoilers for people who haven't watched Dog Eat Dog yet, or watched our episode of Dog Eat Dog yet.
I feel like this character, with the way this director used color and things, if there was a black and white scene, it would have a reason for being in black and white.
Had an intentionality to it. Everything feels like it has an intentionality to it, and that's why it's confusing. It's like it feels like this was very intentional, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be getting out of it. And that leads me to my next question. Is the same thing, is the millipedes at his feet. Like, definitely felt intentional, nice close up on it and all that kind of stuff. Like, what exactly was that about? Is it just something that, like, this drug den is so gross that there's millipedes all over the place and Red just happened to be standing on them at that point?
Like I said, at this point, I would just abandon trying to apply logic to what was going on and just going with like gut feelings of things being presented, and creepy crawly millipedes, you know, is disgusting and inherently, you know, unsettling. So maybe that was the whole point of it, you know, just throw a bunch of bugs all over it to make it look grimy and gross and make you unsettled with what's going on.
Yeah, and then every time they cut to them too, you could, the audio of their legs moving around was amped up too. So I think you're right. It's just kind of like unnerving, unnerving.
Which there's a lot of that in this whole movie.
Maybe it's a symbol of like his corruption. You know, he's now become this, you know, creepy crawly corrupted thing. You know,
or you know, he does actually have that cosmic darkness that the guy is talking about, and the cosmic darkness brings out, you know, evil. Which, you know, I don't know about you, but millipedes are pretty nasty, and I'm not a big fan.
I think they eat carrion too, like they're scavengers and stuff. So they're like inherently tied to eating corpses, rotting corpses and stuff.
Yeah.
Just another gross out featured thing of it.
Yeah. Next one is, why didn't he just lift that four-wheeler out of the mud? I mean, you could lift that back end out super easily. I didn't get that one. I mean, I guess he has to come in on foot, but like, seems like it would have been real easy to get out of that mud.
I thought it was an all-terrain vehicle.
Right.
I mean, I've been around four-wheelers enough to know that you can, by yourself, pick that thing up and move it over. so you can get out of the mud really easily. I guess.
Yeah.
I was the only one who had that question, but
I just figured it was a convenient way to get rid of, he had to transition him off of it, and then be moving on foot,
to slow down the pace a little bit as he gets closer to the end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then my final question is, what would you say was the symbolism of the mine that they all lived in? Like the fact that they're all living in this quarry, and then the higher up they are in the order, the deeper they are in this mine.
I kind of feel like, I don't know, this is a theme, I don't know if it's just because I'm looking for it, but I kind of feel like there's a lot of the movies that we've watched, or just a lot of fiction I've encountered lately, there's a lot of strong ties to like Dante's Inferno, right? Like going down, and the deeper you go, the more ugly it gets.
That's what I thought about the ATV thing. Even the mud and crawling through the quagmire, that's part of one of the circles of hell that he goes through. It's everybody stuck in the hot boiling mud. And stuff, and then the imagery of this whole descent down is basically mirrors how the circles of hell work. Is they're more normal, and then they get worse and weird and more fantastical and bleak as you go spiral down into it. Which I think he physically goes down, like he's up top of a quarry and he descends down into it, and then he gets to this church, and then he goes even further down.
Even when he's coming from the biker gang to the like steel shed, he's coming down a hill, and
he's always descending it.
Kind of how I felt too, is I wanted to make that connection to Dante's Inferno, or the 7 layers of hell, but I wasn't exactly sure like what correlated to what. But and
now that I think about it, actually, like the devil in the Inferno is not in a fiery pit; he's in a frozen black lake. I believe, and everything around Jeremiah it's rock, but it could be like frozen ice. Like it's not, he's just in a bleak, hard, small, claustrophobic room, which could have been a representation of that. Because if I remember right, the devil's frozen in this lake. He's got 3 heads, and he's chewing on like Judas and the 2 other betrayers that I can't remember. But anyway, that was one of the striking things. You associate, the devil lives in hell and it's all hot and burning, but in Inferno it's frozen. It's a frozen hellscape.
That he does set on fire as he's coming out.
And that's the thing, is like after he completes his revenge, he then sets it on fire. And leaves. I mean, like he's burning away everything. He's cleansed with the fire. Like his pain is now cleansed.
And they say that the fire cleanses. That's what they tell him when they burn Mandy. And I feel like there's this whole overarching theme of like what they actually believe is what he actually embodies. Like he gets it right. They don't have it correct. They talk, and I think it could be them being in this dark mine is a reflection of that, because he talks about, I radiate light, and I'm light you would associate with big wide open spaces and sunlight, but instead they live in a hole in the down inside the earth. It's not a well lit place, so they're wrong on that count, and it's actually it's Red who brings the light by burning it, and all that stuff, and radiating light in that vision that he has with Mandy.
This is probably overthinking it, but like, what do you think the next steps are after this? Does he call the cops when he gets home?
No. They actually did a short film, and he goes to IHOP.
It's like the last scene in Pineapple Express.
They just put up some tire. I don't know. That's a good question, because I truly believed that the film was going to end with him dying.
Yeah,
and I thought
did
he
too.
was going to stay down there and burn, because he's completed his mission of revenge, and he's now going to cleanse himself in the fire so that he could go be with Mandy. So when he escapes and takes off, I was kind of shocked, and I kind of was wondering the same things, like what's the next step in his journey? Where does he go
prison,
now? Hopefully,
potentially.
Prison, or maybe he ends up in a theme park of some sort.
Or he goes insane. I mean, like, he's done the drugs that screwed up the biker guys. He's done the drugs.
He's living. I think that's part of why that sky shot of like he's on an alien planet now. Like he just lives in a completely different world. Now because he's damaged like the bikers. which I thought was cool. I thought it was a cool enough ending for it. Like now he's just this, whatever the hell he is, some avatar of vengeance of the great Archon or Abraxas or whatever, now living on Earth, but on a different world in his mind.
We talked about this off camera or off show. We were talking about how Willy's Wonderland might actually be a pseudo sequel to Mandy, which would be amazing.
I saw a comment somebody made online where that's their headcanon. It's that I don't know anything about Willy's Wonderland other than like he plays a mute character. There's weird demonic animatronics based on Five Nights at Freddy's, and he does have some supernatural power in the movie. I don't know what it is, but that was as far as I didn't read the actual things. I didn't want it spoiled. But that would be a kind of cool way to look at it. Like now he's, because it makes sense that he's mute. He doesn't talk a whole lot in this movie, and now he's completely gone insane. So maybe he just doesn't talk anymore.
Exactly.
Maybe
he's got the same look
secret sequel
to him. Right. Sort of has that same like he. I feel like in the trailer he like throws on the same sunglasses as he wears when he's forging the blade, the axe in this movie. So let's hope.
I'd be all for it. I want a whole series of this.
Yeah, I want more Red movies. Come on.
Yes, I would love a series to spiral out of this, where he just goes and exacts revenge on people who've been done wrong by mythical or crazy groups of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try not to think like, what was the point of this, or why did it do that? Because I just kind of felt like, questioning it. You can question all kinds of random shit in this because there's so many trippy, weird visuals. My main one was like, and this is my takeaway, was there a supernatural element to everything that was going on?
Yeah.
Why didn't the dagger kill him? That was my main one. Like he gets stabbed in the side, and instead he just kind of shrugs it off. I mean, pour some vodka on it, but it seems like everything, he got superpowers from it or something like that. He was, imbued with this cosmic force that allowed him to go enact this revenge and stuff. And that's my takeaway is that it's not meant to take it seriously maybe, but it does feel like there is an actual supernatural element going on with this, and so what we're watching is not entirely just based in like fact and a drug fueled thing. There's some maybe literal gods at work with what's going on.
I wonder the same thing, like because the demon bikers, especially with the way that they talk and stuff and the noises that they make, it makes you think like they're demons from hell or like they were actually summoned by that lava rock flute. So I don't know.
It's like these cult, the Children of the New Dawn, are kind of on the right track. Like they kind of get, there's some kind of a cult thing going on. They just don't. They're misguided and they're wrong about it. Like Jeremiah has nothing to do with it. He's not a messiah or whatever. He's just they're meddling in things they don't fully understand. And it ends up being their downfall.
Just a douche who found a couple of artifacts that that actually have power.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Like these guys are just foils for the actual demonic shit that's happening, and they don't even realize it. But it'd be like Ash from Evil Dead with the Necronomicon, like reading from the book and causing all this shit to happen. At the end credits, there's a shot of Mandy's artwork that she was drawing, and it shows Red with the tiger, and then there's starlings chirping in the background. And my question was, what's the significance of that as it pertains to the story?
I think you kind of talked about it a little bit. Yeah, he's the tiger, and I think she's represented by those starlings that she let go when she was a kid. And you kind of said that she sort of was like a, almost like a starling from another planet, like not bird starling, like an actual starling from the stars.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought of it. Also, I think like the tiger being caged was also him. Like, hey, Nick Cage. But like, he's obviously got a wild animal inside of him. Let out and
that's a good point, actually.
But and I think the chemist even mentions like, yeah, she's pretty good. Like when she's cool, everything's cool. Like he knows that if she's not freaking out, the tiger, that everything is cool, which is probably like Red himself. He's just a normal. Maybe he has a dark past, but he's a gentle guy when he's with Mandy and stuff, just living his life. And then this horrible shit happens. He gets let out of the cage and goes on a killing spree.
Oh yeah, that's actually a good point.
Just like the tiger did.
I definitely got the sense that Mandy has been through some shit, you know, and has had a hard life, and I feel like Red also had a hard life, and they found each other, and they helped each other, you know, over their traumas, you know, and found this kind of sanctuary in each other's arms in this place in the middle of the woods, you know. Yeah. And then it's all taken from them, but you know, I feel like there's a lot more in the past that we don't get to hear about. But yeah, that was my take on that.
What's the final tally?
Nigel, do you want to hit us with the curse tracker, which I'm guessing is low, right?
This is a first. There is no there's no cursing. 0 curses in this. There are 2 honorable mentions that I will say when he says Jesus freaks and when he says I am your God now, but I didn't count those because they weren't said in the context of being curses.
Yeah.
You know, so that's it. There is swearing in this movie, but none of it comes from Red.
Yeah.
So I think who would have thought that the most bloody, gory, dark movie we've seen so far had 0 curses in it.
Super clean, Leads back to that, like him being, you know, the actual Messiah in this story.
Yeah. He doesn't need a potty mouth to be the embodiment of evil vengeance or whatever he is. So our total still sits at 224.
Over on the nudity side of things, there was the nude guy in the camper, the dead guy. So I counted that as like I'm only tracking a few things here, and one is male ass. So there's female ass and male ass, and I separated those out instead of just doing ass and in general, which we had 2 in this. So we had that guy, and then I counted the guy in the porno. Just because I counted the side ass of the homeless guy in Bringing Out the Dead, and then I counted the side ass of the woman on the bed in Dog Eat Dog. So I'm stuck now. I gotta count side asses. So 2 man asses, and then of course Jeremiah's floppy dong is our first confirmed penis. We have talked about Nick Cage having a full-on tent in Vampire's Kiss, but I think at this point I'm gonna throw that one out. I'm not gonna count that one anymore as like actual nudity.
It's not nudity.
It'll just be an honorable mention.
So that brings our grand total up to 19 breasts, most of them in Dog Eat Dog, 2 female asses, 4 male asses, 1 vagina, also in Dog Eat Dog. And I'm like on the fence on whether I should count that because it is full frontal, but it was in a porno website that they were looking at. And then 1 penis in
and then you're not going to count the cartoon nudity?
Nope, not going to count cartoon nudity. Yeah,
I wondered about it. I was like, are you
I
going to count this heavy
but I
metal?
was like, nah. Yeah, I can't count cartoons. Though it'll be interesting if we tracked that separate. Like, how many nude cartoon characters have we seen throughout this entire journey? But yeah,
so far 1.
But I mean, once we get to 100 and something, then who knows? Who knows? Especially since we're doing Teen Titans and Into the Spider-Verse, you know, there's bound to be some nudity.
Man, these kid movies went a weird route.
As far as our state/country tracker, we still have not left the United States once in 9 movies, which is astounding to me. We were back in California again. That is the 3rd time that we've been in California with Deadfall and Wicker Man. So that's 3 times in California. 7 total states so far. So California, New York, Washington, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Illinois, and Ohio. On the budget side of things, this movie cost $6 million to make. Very well spent. I feel like that $6 million went a long ways for this movie.
It really did, yeah.
It only made back $1.4 million, which I'm assuming is, you know, it was only in a very limited release. And $1.4 million is actually not terrible when you consider what kind of art house movies, what kind of an art house movie this is, and what kind of movies Nick Cage had predominantly been doing for the last 10 years at that point in 2018 and going forward. This was kind of the first movie that really brought Nick Cage back into the, like, okay, we can take Nick Cage seriously again realm, which is kind of crazy. Because, like, you know, I feel like Mom and Dad, that movie is also produced by this same group, which we'll watch probably next season or the season after. But that movie was the first movie that people started taking him serious in these horror movies. And since then, you know, Mom and Dad had a pretty decent Rotten Tomatoes score, I feel like. I don't remember what it was. But then Mandy's a 90% and Color Out of Space is 86, I think. So, yeah, it's kind of his resurgence has come through these movies. But overall, so far, I feel like this is going to change drastically with our next film. But right now we're at $125 million budget and a gross of 78.5. So that's a big deficit. It's a big deficit for these 9 movies so far. On the ratings side of thing, we've had this was another unrated movie, which is 4 now. 4 out of the 9 that we've done have been unrated, which says a lot about his choices the last 10 years or so. But 4 R-rated movies, 1 PG-13, and then 4 unrated movies. So, yeah.
Nice. We cleared up the biker stuff because that was going to be one of my questions. Like, you know, was that the guy that came back from the pit and all that stuff? So we cleared that up. So with clearing that up, we had 9 deaths, or 9. He killed 9 people in this film, between the bikers and then the cult members, bringing us to a grand total of 17 kills over the 9 films we watched.
So he had 8 coming into this movie, and then eclipsed that.
He eclipsed it. He was +1 in this one.
Did you count the chemist?
See,
did he kill him?
He didn't
guess
kill
that's
him.
another one I wanted to talk to you guys about, because I didn't count the chemist because they left that up to be open to interpretation, and my interpretation is that he let the chemist go, which was him letting the tiger go. I don't think the tiger was real. I think that was just a part of his hallucination, and it represented the chemist, and it was his decision to let the chemist go, because ultimately the chemist didn't do anything to wrong him, and he gave him the information to then go complete his revenge.
Plus, he kind of powered him up by giving him the LSD.
Yeah, that too.
I thought it was kind of representing Red as the tiger, because we've seen that thread, you know, with his T-shirt, and then we see that tiger in there, and then
after credits,
that's a good point.
The cartoon.
That's actually a good point. So Death Tracker, obviously he survived. Once again, our hero survives to fight another day. So we are 6 out of 9. So over the 9 films, he's died 6 times. And then with the Resurrection Tracker, I guess since we've really kind of gone back and forth on, you know, he gets stabbed, but he's okay, all this mythical stuff. But I think because he didn't die and come back to life, I can't count it. So
unless he did. Because doesn't it fade out after all this shit happens? And maybe that could have been him dying and then being reborn the next morning. But I don't think it's explicit enough to count it.
I wouldn't say
it's
like
a discussion
up,
point.
It was too vague to really.
That could be another way to interpret it, I think, because he actually did get killed by the knife. He died over the night, and then he was woke back up, and now he was ready to go kick some ass. But I don't think it should be counted. It's not. It's not focal enough.
Where does this masterpiece fall? Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
Let's start with Vince, as always. I'm just going to keep it that way. I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Vince, where does Mandy rate on your Cageometer?
This is a 9 for me. I'm giving this bad boy a 9 out of 10.
Wow.
I really loved it. It was just so well. There's a lot of love that went into this movie. You can tell from the director. I love how well paced it was. For me, like I said, I couldn't believe that it was a 2-hour film, because when I got done with it, it did not feel like 2 hours had passed. I thought it was paced incredibly. I love the way that he sectioned out the stories to, and gave the characters time to develop, which made that third act more incredible because you can see the love that he had for her and the relationship was important to him, and you see these little glimpses of this past life that was a hard life. Like, you just got to assume it's a hard life because in that third act he's very capable at what he's doing. He is obviously an alcoholic at some point. You see the pain of now, like, going back to this person he never wanted to be again. It just, like, all concludes in a very satisfying way when he fucking squeezes that dude's head, Jeremiah's head, and Jeremiah's eyes are popping out and shit. I mean, it was really well done. I love the monologues. The monologues that Jeremiah gave were incredible, and the visuals that accompanied them, like we talked about with the two faces, with Mandy's face and his face interchanging with one another, and the color schemes and palettes that he used throughout the film were a lot of fun. It was just a really good, just a really good world that he built. Like we talked about, the story is a generic revenge story, right? Man's wife or woman dies, he goes and avenges her, but it was this story or the world that he built around this story that made this so unique and interesting to me. And as we started digging into a lot of, like, the artifacts that they had, that they were using, you could just really tell that he was building, there's something more that was built into this world, which is what I think gave it a lot of depth, and made some of the stuff that, like we said, like, we just had to stop analyzing, fit and be believable in this world. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for me on this one. As far as Nick Cage, I'm gonna give him a 9 as well. This is the highest rating from me for him. Yeah. But I felt like, I won't say much more about his performance because we talked a lot about it throughout the breakdown, but to have so little lines and to convey so much through his body language and his expressions, he nailed it. And especially when it came to the grief and pain scenes, like you said, Patrick, when he was in the bathroom freaking out, it could have gone into a Vampire's Kiss reciting the entire alphabet meme-tastic moment. But the moment he sat down on that toilet and started crying, it changed. Like, you were watching this man bear his soul and his grief, and it's the best performance he's given, in my opinion, of all the movies that we've seen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he deserves a 9 from me.
Nigel, where does Mandy rate on your Cageometer?
This discussion has made me bump it up, actually, a bit. I had it at an 8 originally. I'm moving it to a 9 as well after discussing it and digging into it, because I feel like it's a movie that you really do have to discuss and think about and process a bit. But one of the nice things about it is, even if you don't do that, I still think it's a great experience just on the first watch.
True.
I only watched it the one time. I got too busy to watch it a second time, and my rental ran out on it. I wanted to watch it another time, but I wanted to get my wife to watch it, but she doesn't seem interested in it at all because it just seems too dark and weird for her.
Same here.
But,
yeah.
But I've never seen a movie like this before. I've never gone through an experience like this movie presented, and it wasn't perfect for me. I do think it was a little long. I do think it dragged in some places, especially in the opening act. For me, it just kind of felt like things were going a little slow paced. That kind of makes me a little leery on a rewatch. Like, I have to sit through this whole thing again. It makes me sound negative on it, but it's just one of those things that gives me pause.
I would actually say the second time around was more enjoyable than the first time, for me. Anyway, okay. It was like, because I had that thought, like, after watching it, I kind of dreaded the second time, going through it, because I had to do the breakdown and stuff. I was like, shit, I'm gonna have to commit all this time to this movie and sit here, and, like, it didn't feel that way at all. Like, I was just genuinely like, I can't wait to get to the next scene. I can't wait to get to the next scene. Like, even while I was sitting there, like, writing stupid jokes and shit, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see what's next again. So
I want to rewatch it now after discussing it.
I think
guess that's
only like $10
sign
on
for that.
Amazon. So
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to buy it along with Color Out of Space because I liked that one a lot.
Yeah.
That one was a rental as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So my other thing is I wish there was originally when I was doing my initial assessment of it, I wish there was a little more story to it, a little more plot in it. But after talking about it, I don't think that it needs anything more than what it has. I think it's there if you pay attention and you deep dive into it, and it presents itself in a way that still fits the story. It doesn't need anything beyond that. And it's parts of it are ambiguous enough that it's fine. It suits it. Just the way that it all coalesces together into a movie that you experience more than you analyze, but you can analyze it if you want, and by analyzing it, you actually get more out of the experience, if that makes any sense. But just the soundtrack coupled with the visuals are center stage, accompanied by Nick Cage's performance and everybody's performance in it, really. They all coalesce into something that is better than the sum of its parts, and the story takes a backseat to that, but it's fine in the purpose of this movie. The visuals, the sound, the performances are the star of the show. The story can take a backseat. It's fine. That's my thought on it. So the way it was executed and the way it was done, specifically on the small budget that it has, from a director who's done one other movie, I think it's a near perfect execution of what he set out to do. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in it that we didn't even pick up on that he actually included in it that, that he did a good job of putting in there. So
I feel like there's a lot to. It's a movie that's going to be studied for years. I feel like it's one of those movies that's going to be probably shown in like film schools and stuff. It's been a while since I had college education in English and stuff. So it's been a while since I've had a discussion about something where I've been able to analyze things. I get that feeling, of a classic book where there's a lot going on under the surface, and there's a lot you can take away from it if you want, a lot you can interpret, and there's a lot of it. Like I think the three of us may have three different interpretations of what even happens in the movie, but it's fine. It's all it all works on every level. So that's what I love about it. So, and then as far as Nick Cage's performance, I give him a 9 out of 10 as well, which is I think the same I gave him in Weatherman. I think there's less for him to do in this movie, but that's not exactly true. He has to convey a lot without saying a lot, and does that in a way that's near perfect. His grief coming through the performance is palpable, like you said in the notes. The one shot take he does when he downs a bottle of wine and gives into his sorrow and starts this whole descent into hell is one of the best things I've seen him do. Even though he doesn't say a lot after that, he just has this presence that works for this character and for the movie, so that by the time he's got Jeremiah's head in his hands and he says, "I'm your God now," and he's using quoting things as like guttural demon stuff, like you've watched him transform into this through the course of the movie, and it all fits and it doesn't seem jarring and weird. And he gave his all to this role that just seems like it came out of nowhere. Really
in
did.
A movie that passed a lot of people by. So, 9 out of 10 on that one as well for me.
Wow. I also gave it a 9 out of 10 for the movie, which is crazy. Like, this is easily the highest rating that we've given on any of these movies. It's hard sometimes to, like, think about it in the scope of, like, other Nick Cage performances. Like, do you put this at the same performance as, like, a Raising Arizona or an Adaptation or Leaving Las Vegas? And it's like, it's hard to say. Like, I don't know. I waffled a little bit. I went back and forth between an 8 and a 9 on the movie, just because, like, I don't know. I do think that there are things that could have been executed better, but, like, I mean, it's almost like a masterpiece. I mean, it just, everything comes together. These incredible performances from I don't know how to pronounce her name properly. Andrea Rosen.
Rice.
I think it's Riceborough.
Riceborough. Yeah,
It's
sorry.
probably Riceborough.
Yeah,
It looks like Riceborough,
She-
but it's probably Riceborough.
She was incredible throughout the whole thing, and she just disappeared in that. I've seen her in other things, and she's not this character in other things. She was incredible, and then Linus Roache is just off the chart as this crazy
Incredible.
preacher, which. We've seen this character many times. These crazy zealot leaders who convince some followers, to David Koresh, themselves into this like communal thing where he has sex with all the women and all that kind of stuff. Like we've seen this character many times, but he brought such a like presence to that character and such a like depth to it. I don't know. It was kind of spellbinding every time he was on scene, on camera. Even in the end, when he was trying to convince Red that he would save his soul, and then he tries to blow him and stuff, and it's like,
You buy both. Both
he
performances.
works so well on both because you could see those moments of doubt so many times in the movie of him doubting himself, and then he corrects himself, and that happens in that scene where he's like, I'll suck your dick, man, and then he like snaps back and is like, I don't kneel before you kneel before me. So just incredible performances throughout. The music is just fucking tits, man. It's just great.
So good.
Just from the start, with King Crimson coming in, which it doesn't take much to. I love King Crimson, and I've always been a huge fan ever since I was a teenager, but like, you want to make me love your movie instantly? Throw some King Crimson on the beginning of it. And Johan Johansson's score is just unbelievable throughout the thing. And then like when the drums and the droning guitar come in when he enters that church, I was just like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. Every bit of it, just from start to finish, is just fantastic. I waffle a bit on the rating just because like I didn't get a lot of the fantasy stuff. Like I wasn't exactly sure what the hell they were trying to say with like a lot of stuff. But like you said, like you really just kind of have to shut your brain off and just enjoy it, because it is it's like one of my favorite movies of all time, or potentially my favorite movie of all time, is The Shining, and like I have seen it 50 times. And I still don't get it. And I think that's why I love it still. It's like, I still don't get it, but I love it. And that's how I feel about Mandy. As far as Nick Cage, I didn't give him a 9. I gave him an 8. And it was mostly because I feel like he's done so much more in other movies. Like, I hesitate to give him almost the highest rating that we could possibly give him for a role where he's mute for almost the entire thing. That being said, every second that he's on screen is like you can't take your eyes off of him, especially like when he starts going nuts and he just gives those looks and you're just like, oh shit, something's going on behind those eyes, like the whole movie. But like, I hesitate to give him a full 9 out of 10 just because like I've seen what he can do with dialogue, in a really great movie. So I have to give him just a little nudge down to an 8, just because of that. But that being said, like fuck, like that moment in the bathroom, watching it the first time, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Things are gonna get wacky. Nick Cage is about to do what Nick Cage does, and then when he starts sobbing, that was the moment where I was just like, holy shit, this is a whole different level. This is a different kind of Nick Cage freak out in a way where it's like this is exactly how that character would respond to that horror that he just witnessed and what he just went through. And he just lost the person that brought him out of what we can interpret was like a very dark part of his life, and made him happy. And I get the feeling that he's not a super happy person in general, but when he's with Mandy, he is. And vice versa, kind of the same thing. Like, I don't think Mandy's a super happy person unless she's with Red. And,
and none of this is none of this is told to us. It's just shown to us through his performance.
Yes.
Which is one of those fantastic things about it.
Yeah. And it's just heartbreaking. And it's, several things throughout the film where it's just like, his crazy Cagiest moments all kind of come from things that revolve around Mandy, like when he screams, "You ripped my shirt," like that came out of like they cut the shirt that Mandy wore the first time he met her, and like that must have also been kind of heartbreaking. Like you took her away from me, and now you're going to take away this incredibly important piece of her that I still get to hold on to. And so it was a fucking amazing performance and a fucking amazing movie. And if you aren't convinced after watching and listening to this, then I don't know what we can do.
Yeah.
It's a Nick Cage suck fest for us for this whole movie. Just like
call it Jeremiah. I'll suck a dick.
We'll suck his dick after watching this performance.
This movie could have easily been, just on paper, a cheap, cheesy, schlocky C movie.
100%.
In a different director. Even with Nick Cage in it. They could have gone a completely different direction, but it treats it seriously in a way that, you didn't have to, but the way that he wanted to execute it just kind of shows the power of how well you can craft a story.
Yes.
Even in a simple story like that.
Yes. I mean, I think that's a testament to telling a simple story, but being able to make it just so engaging throughout the whole movie. I think that's, I think it's the music, I think it's the performances, and I think it's the direction. And like 9 out of 10 on all of those fronts, like unbelievable throughout the whole thing.
I go back to thinking like it's like a fairy tale. Again, fairy tales have simple stories, but you can present them. Part of the reason why they've lasted is because you can. You can present them in ways that are impactful and meaningful. With a bare bones structure of a story, to wrap around.
It doesn't have to get all convoluted. A lot of, especially blockbusters and stuff, they try and get too big, and too fancy with it. And they're like, well, we got to film in 30 different countries in this movie. And it's like, this is $6 million movie with a very simple story, but it is, it's orchestrated to the highest possible level throughout the whole thing.
They executed so well.
Could you imagine if they gave this guy $10 million to make this movie?
Just again, juxtapose this with Dog Eat Dog, which is a simple story,
right?
that is executed terribly,
garbage,
and not taken seriously, and is an awful experience all around.
I wouldn't say awful. I mean,
but
it's
not great.
It's not great, but if it's a fucking just hour, what was that movie? Hour and a half?
Yeah, it was an hour and a half, and it felt twice as long. Felt twice as long as Mandy, to me anyway.
It really did. I definitely say that Dog Eat Dog does feel a lot longer, but I mean, this movie was missing one important thing. I would have given it a 10 if it started off with William Dafoe slashing some lady's neck open.
maybe he's one of the bikers.
If instead of Mac from The Predator, it would have been Paul Schrader who comes in. He's like,
Paul Schrader.
I saw him from a distance, and I could say, they fucking loved it. They fucking love being in pain. Yeah.
They used to be. I used to know them. I don't know
they were making LSD.
They used to make LSD, but now they drink fat kids' blood.
Here it is, the moment you've all been waiting for. These are the cagiest moments of the film.
That was my favorite shirt. talk about that.
You're in my shirt! You're in my shirt!
That's it for this episode of One Cage at a Time. As always, be sure to drop us an email at onecagepodcast@gmail.com to let us know if we missed anything, or hit us up with suggestions to improve the show, any comments, compliments, or simply to gush about this goddamn brilliant man, Nicolas Cage. Next, we're teeing up our first Nicolas Cage blockbuster, the critically panned but hugely successful 2000 loose remake of the 1974 film Gone in 60 Seconds, starring Angelina Jolie, Giovanni Ribisi, Robert Duvall, and of course, Nicolas Cage. To save his brother's life, a former car thief is reluctantly pulled from retirement and is forced to steal 50 luxury cars in one night with the help of his former crew. I have always had a secret grudge against this movie because I am 100% convinced that this movie is the reason that we have 9 goddamn Fast and Furious movies. Because I feel like they had to have watched this movie and been like, that's our movie. That's the movie we're gonna make. I don't know.
All right. I watched this movie in the Fast and Furious, the first Fast and Furious movie. I watched these two movies a fuck ton of times when I was a teenager.
Fast and Furious and
Gone in 60 Seconds.
I mean, they came out
fucking obsessed with cars, dude.
relatively close to each other. I think Fast and Furious was what, 2001. This one came out in 2000. And I feel like it was like this weird Hollywood trend, you know, like
it was.
Gone in 60 Seconds started it, and then Fast and Furious just took off from there and fucking made. At this point, they've got, with greenlit films, sequels, spin-offs, all that shit. They've got 14 movies total. Like after you know all the movies that they've already made, 14. That's what they've got greenlit at this point. Like, that's not like the future. That's not like, oh, we're done. No, that's 14 movies are confirmed to be on their way total.
God
And
bless them.
I've always held this movie personally responsible for that. So, yeah, I might come into it with a little bit of orneriness, I think.
I fucking love it. I've been looking forward to watching this one and doing an episode with you guys.
I've never actually watched the whole
I did see
thing.
it once, and it was stupid, and I didn't like it.
Oh my god, you guys are missing out. I've seen this movie so many times, it's not even funny.
This movie has like a 26% on Rotten Tomatoes, but made a
valid.
shit ton of money. Like, it made a ton. I mean, so our budget tracker is going to flip completely after this one, and that's the problem. That's the problem. That's what they followed the model perfectly for Fast and Furious. It's like, okay, dumb movie about cars, tons of money. Let's just repeat, rinse and repeat, over and over and over again.
Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat.
Ridiculousness over and over and over again with cars that wouldn't possibly be capable of being pulled off. That's our model. Let's go for it. Let's make 9 of these motherfuckers.
God, this is just, you're just making a great point as to why they need a green light Gone in 60 Seconds too.
I mean,
They really should have
Nick
kept
Cage
them
is on
going.
this like renaissance path right now where it's
Yeah.
like, if National Treasure 3 does well, I bet you we could
And,
see that, especially if he shows up as Ghost
Face
Rider.
Off too. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
That's
rumored
definitely good, yeah.
he's going to show up as Ghost Rider in Doctor Strange 2. And then,
Sound like
Face
Ghost
Off
Rider.
2 with, like, however
Face Off
they'd
2.
make that ridiculous fucking One of the characters is dead, dude. All right.
But they kept his face, bro.
Yeah.
And it
He
aged
put his face
perfectly.
on someone else.
Aged perfectly. And somehow he's still zany, like the
I
person
bet
that takes his face.
they'll take the face off and put it on somebody in the 90s.
Wait. The face off. What?
Yeah, they'll take the face off, put it on somebody back then, and then have them age up to whenever the movie takes place, and say that the face has been on the person the whole time.
I bet you what they do is a clone. I bet you, and then
Oh my
Travolta,
God, please.
Travolta plays himself, and Nick Cage plays the crazy Nick Cage from the original Face Off.
Oh my God, I hope so.
Anyways, make sure to check it out wherever fine films are sold or on your streaming service of choice. Until then, we'll say goodbye the way we do each and every episode with our Nicolas Cage quote of the film.
What you're hunting is rabid animals, and you should go in knowing that your odds ain't that good, and you will probably die.
Don't be negative.
Thanks for listening to One Cage at a Time. Visit us online at onecageatatime.com or follow us on the social media platform of your choice for more Nicolas Cage goodness. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you really like the show, become a member of our Patreon where you can download unedited and ad-free episodes as well as listen to our follow-up show, Back Into the Cage, where we re-examine each movie to discuss what we missed the first time around, answer listener questions, and wax poetic about the man, the myth, the legend that is Nicolas Cage.
Was rated #1 3 years in a row. Cheddar Goblin by Devane. It's goblin good.
This is a test. This station is conducting a test of the emergency broadcasting system.